everyone, and welcome back to another edition of the Tetracast. This is RPG Site's weekly podcast where we get the site staff together to talk about our favorite genre of video games. It is 2025. We're back. I'm your host. My name is Bryan Vitale. Joining me, we have Josh Torres.
Already one crazy year, 11 days in.
We've Adam Vitale.
This January compared to last January is already like this week. Just everything's already happening and moving and busy.
And we have James Galizio.
This is fine. I lost power for almost 48 hours.
Yeah, James. So obviously, one of the more significant things that are happening, obviously to you locally and us in the general coast area, West Coast area is, these fires that broke out in California. Just want to check in on you, James, because you're around that area. How are you? Are you okay?
I'm doing fine. It's just like I've definitely got quite a lot of friends that have been more directly impacted. I'm far enough away at the current moment because I'm not currently in Long Beach. I think I mentioned this, but I said, lost power for 48 hours because I'm in near my parents in kind of the mountains, close to LA. So it's the winds got pretty fast, and once they reach sustained of 30 miles per hour, not to mention the gusts are up to 60, they shut off the power preemptively just so if a line falls or something, or if a branch completes a circuit, it doesn't cause a fire. And because of that, they had to wait for the winds to die down before they could actually be okay, we have to inspect the lines now to make sure it's safe to turn the power back on. And that was almost 48 hours.
Crazy. Yeah. We're glad
I'd rather
that you're
have
safe.
Yeah, I'd rather have that than the fires because the air quality is really bad. I know that former site contributor Kazuma has not been having a great time with the air quality because he's in K-Town, so that's right downtown, and on a good day, pollution in downtown LA is not great, but especially when there's the Eden fire northeast, and then the Palisades fire to the west. It's probably not going to be safe to go out without a K95 for at least a few weeks.
Yeah, so like I said, we're glad that you're safe, and hopefully, any of your friends, family, relatives around the area, if they've been really impacted, and obviously, our hearts and prayers go out to all our listeners, or who have been affected, or any of your family, friends, or relatives that are listening. Of you listeners have been affected. That's Mother Nature, man. It's very hard to stop when it starts. I can't even imagine. It's crazy.
Yeah.
It's for me, it's really weird because
Yeah.
obviously, I moved out of California 2 years ago, and I'm thinking, man, if I was still there, what the hell would I be doing? But obviously, I still had family and friends still there, so I called in throughout the week and checked up on them. They all seem to be doing fine. Some of them lost power, but none are directly affected, thankfully. But once again, many have been. So it's a rough start to 2025 so for several people. So hopefully they recover soon. It's gonna be a rough one.
Yep.
And I did misspeak just a minute ago. I guess this is the first time that we, as the podcast, have recorded in 2025. Of course, last week we published our RPG of the Year 2024 edition of the podcast. Of course, recorded at the end of 2024. For us, it was about a month ago. But for you all listening, it was a week ago. So that's kind of where we're going to start off. We kind of start off this podcast a little bit more casually, as we can, of course, on the side of news like the Southern California fires. Let's talk about, obviously what we've been doing on break. January, like Adam declared, it doesn't really slow down. We'll kind of roll back into our normal cadence, after we kind of catch up and get our legs back under us. We'll talk a little bit about, what's gone up on the site for the game of the year and all the things like that. So I know some of us, traveled. I went to the East Coast to see some family. I know Adam went back to the Midwest to see some family. I don't know if if either Josh or James, if you did any holiday travel or visited family during the break.
I didn't travel, but I kind of went in a weird direction where I started a new full-time day job throughout the holidays, which is fine. It's great. I'll a lot of us who work on the site that is like more of a secondary side gig or secondary job. And for me, like a lot of last year was like working on the site, plus like finding a new full time job because my previous one didn't work out because it was like a graveyard shift overnight that I couldn't really handle. So I was thankful to find a new full time day job. Obviously having reliable income plus full benefits is very very important here in the U.S. On that side of things. So yeah, I mean, it's for me it was a lot of getting settled into a new job, and it's some fine. It's a great.
Yeah, so we have a lot of different features that are up on the site at rpgsite.net that relate to the Game of the Year podcast. Of course, the main thing is if you want to, see just a list, you can go to our site, look for RPG Site RPG of the Year. That'll basically have all the write-ups, all of the details, the listings, the final results. If you really want to get the most out of it, like if you're really interested and passionate about RPGs, you can listen to our podcast last week. It is a long podcast. Many of you probably have already started, or you're finding a time to listen to it, or setting aside a task where you can have that alongside. And we've already had some really good feedback in our Discord channel about those that have listened to the podcast. We've had some really good feedback on Blue Sky, a little less on Twitter, but some good feedback there too about the deliberations. A lot of people appreciate the honesty. Some people disagreed with the results, and that's of course like we're here to hear all of that. So we also talked about the results of the reader poll that Adam kind of administered. This is the second year in the row that the reader poll and the site poll actually agreed pretty well. I think 2 years ago, 2023, it was kind of a foregone conclusion. Last year, maybe not so much, but to kind of put a one-sentence summary, like our readers and our site just had Metaphor winning out, barely edging out games like Rebirth and Infinite Wealth. So our results and the reader results kind of aligned in that way. But of course, we had arguments for all sorts of games up and down the top 5 and top 10. So listen to that podcast if you're interested in seeing why a game was on the list or why a game was absent from the list. And then, of course, as we go into 2025, we have our most anticipated RPGs. And this is another one that I believe, Adam, I think you were a little bit more on the ball on this one, that there was a pretty strong agreement between our site, our contributors and our staff, and the readers for most anticipated, with games like Trails in the Sky the First and Xenoblade Chronicles Cross Definitive Edition basically being 1A and 1B. I don't have the reader results in front of me. Was it those in the top 2 spots there for anticipated?
No, actually. First of all,
I figure I'm missing one.
So for us, that was for our staff reader our staff most anticipated. We just do like a quick tally, and everyone on the staff or whoever wants to participate just basically does a tally, and we just very relatively quick way to say what are we most anticipated for, and we had a tie, and our tie was Xenoblade X Definitive Edition, Xenoblade Cross, and Legend of Heroes Trails in the Sky remake. Our readers actually voted second, Clair Obscur Expedition 33, which is interesting. We actually had that on our list too. It wasn't like our winner, but it was definitely a high. It got plenty of tallies. But I actually saw some people talking about our list for most anticipated and just most anticipated in general, how it oftentimes is going to be established stuff or oftentimes remasters, which kind of makes sense because people are familiar with Xenoblade, they're familiar with Trails and whatnot, or the next entry in a popular series. People are going to anticipate those. For something like Clair Obscur is kind of a wild card, kind of an unknown. Like there's no pedigree. It looks cool, but we don't have a whole lot to go off of in terms of like actual experience with the dev or a franchise or anything. So the fact that rated so well is pretty cool.
It really goes to show that first impressions and having like a platform to really like put it in front of the most eyes. Like that was a really good announcement trailer. It like pretty much everyone I know had the same reaction where it was like they were looking at it, it's like it looks cool, but it's like I'm not sure how much like action RPG jank I'm gonna be willing to put up with to play this. And then as soon as we saw it was turn-based, it's like you have my attention.
Yeah. It's like the exact opposite of Exodus. Sorry to have Exodus be catching strays. But like a game that like a game that we wanted to be excited for, but there was just nothing to latch onto, where Clair Obscur right away is like, this is what sort of game this is. And it's like, oh, I know exactly what sort of game that is. Or maybe not exactly, but I have a good feeling about it.
I highly encourage more developers and publishers to showcase, real gameplay in their announcement trailers. Show a little bit of what the player is going to actually be seeing, when they're playing the video game. When you show off the game, that'd be awesome. I wish more people would do it.
Yep. So each of those is a different URL on RPG Site, and if you go to rpgsite.net, we currently have them listed in the top banner, so you don't have to go searching or scrolling for them. Though, of course, it's been a while since we've recorded. So, the last time we recorded was before the Game Awards, which feels like ancient history at this point. It was a month ago. So, as we talk about the news and the topics this week on this episode, we're going to talk the highlights on there. We're not going to go through every announcement as we would have if we were recording like the week after. But obviously, we're going to talk about the big ones. We're going to talk about Witcher 4. We're going to talk about the Falcom announcements that followed up after the Game Awards. Was that in late December or early January? There's a bunch of stuff from there too. So we're going to definitely touch the highlights, and then some of the other games that got new trailers, or new gameplay, or new crossovers. We'll kind of touch on those in the upcoming weeks as they release or get reviewed or things like that. We do have also several of our contributors put up top 10 lists on RPG Site. So Josh James, myself, and Mikhail, as well as Josh Tolentino, all put up our individual top 10s. So that's basically, you see a lot of sites do this. Obviously, RPG Site is comprised of multiple people with multiple different viewpoints. And we also play games that are not all RPGs. So those top 10 lists allow us to, we came to an agreement or a consensus or as close to one as we can for our RPG of the year. But of course, that allows us to highlight our individual, favorites and successes, even if they lie outside of the RPG Site purview. So we have all those up on the site as well.
Yeah, another caveat with that is that some of us do tend to play games in Japanese before they get localized, and because of the way that our actual RPG of the year works, is that for example, Daybreak was only eligible for this year when it first showed up on my top 10 games of 2021 list, because it was my personal list for that year.
So if the stars align, maybe, just maybe, we might the West might finally get caught up with where Trails games are in Japan at the moment. If the stars align.
It's the first time. It's the first time in a while where it feels plausible. Not like this year or next year, but within the next 3 years, maybe. It really kind of depends on what News America has planned for the back end of this year. Obviously, we're talking about Kaino Kaseki, and we'll talk about it, but a new version of East 10 that got announced, which the timing there, we'll go into the details.
But
So that kind of covers.
Yeah, all I say is I really tried my best to convince everyone on the Game of the Year podcast that Taiko no Tatsujin was an RPG, and no one bought it. I was like, dude, it's the best game of this year. It's the best RPG. And they're like,
No, I mean,
I mean, I did do the review for that 3DS remaster double pack, but that's because the story modes in that were legitimately RPGs.
Yeah, but I just, on a personal note, I just really do appreciate, every single year I walk away from the RPG Site podcast with a game that I definitely want to play. I think 4 years ago, I might be getting the number wrong. It was Aegis Rim. 2 years ago, it was World of Horror. What was it last year? Maybe last year, actually.
Labyrinth for Glory, I hope.
I have no idea. I don't know. I know I got a lot more people to try out and check out the Thaumaturge because of the Game of the Year podcast.
Yeah, I've been another buddy of mine who also does the podcast stuff has recently started playing, and hearing him talk about it in addition to you, it's like, man, I need to get to that, but just
I understand, but yeah, I definitely once again, it's a really cool overlooked game of last year, but I understand because last year was a lot of games, but I'm definitely glad that I was able to check that out. I was like, oh, and spread the word, this is actually really, really fucking cool.
Actually, I didn't realize this at the time. I feel kind of silly for this, but out of all of our winners, I played all of them except our winner for best art, Black Myth. I didn't play that one. Also, no, just that one. I was like, wait, didn't Zenless Zone Zero win something? Oh no, I guess that was runner-up best art. So apparently, I don't play games that contend for best art. But yeah, so I guess last year that's why I didn't walk away with that, because that was you had convinced me to play the Thaumaturge early back last March when it came out.
Yeah, I think I picked you and Ad. I was like, you two would really like this. This is definitely.
Hey, I was excited for that before it came out.
Oh, I know. Both of you and I are. Yeah, you're right.
Adam's credit, yeah, he was.
Yes. And then it was definitely just you, Brian. Like you would like this. I know you would.
Yeah. And then I was right there within a couple weeks.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm gonna.
And then go ahead, James.
One thing I do regret that I wasn't able to get to before the podcast, specifically because I know for a fact it's not getting localized, is I do want to go back and finish Barstola Abyss just so I can talk about it, because that game is basically just nobody's played it. It's not getting localized, and if we're talking about releases from last year, it's like that's one of those that I feel like I kind of have an obligation to do, because who else is going to be talking about it, or like, you know what I mean?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, it's definitely
I
tough
think
for games that won't get localized unless there's like a surprise other third party that picks it up. It's not always like
I somehow managed to make it to 2025 with actually not a whole lot of 2024 backlog, quote unquote. I wanted to get to Rise of the Ronin, and I guess
I'll just wait for the PC version for that.
maybe at this point. And then Horizon Forbidden West came to PC last year, and I wanted to get to that eventually
Gotta
too.
replay the remaster first of the first one.
Oh yeah, I gotta play Horizon Remaster.
I'm waiting for the Stellar Blade PC version, and we're thinking about PC versions we're waiting for.
Yeah.
Josh,
But,
was
speaking,
Josh, was Dungeons of Hinterberg on your list? I don't remember.
I had it. It didn't make any of my list, but I had it listed as like games I played. I don't think I had it in my honorable mentions. Like it's a cool game.
That's another game I need to get to.
It's a cool game that I like.
I played the playtest, and it seemed like it was like a very comfy time. Maybe not incredible, but definitely like a comfort food sort of game.
Yeah, that has some really cool dungeon designs and ideas in there. Like I really hope that the team continues to like do like really great stuff. Definitely interested in what they're working on next.
I really need to finish this raid in 14 so I can have more free time.
Were you gonna ask Adam? You were gonna say something.
No, I was just Dungeons of Hinterberg is one of the games that I was wanting to get to, just as like a kind of a small scale indie kind of dungeon RPG, but that was like I didn't have time.
Yeah. And I think one of the games that honestly kind of came out of nowhere for me. I didn't finish it yet because I'm working on other stuff. But a lot of there's a Famitsu poll for a lot of Japanese industry people and Japanese creators on like what were their favorite games of the year, and a lot of them recommended on their list this little indie game called No Case Should Remain Unsolved. And anyone who picked that up, like, this seems to have like a really really positive opinion of that game. It's a very small indie game that I think Playism published.
Yeah, there was that. There was also like another game that I saw a bunch of them like really kind of saying that they recommended called Sorry We're Closed.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I've been meaning to get to that too. It's like, yeah, there was a couple of those.
Really, really cool, insightful like list from like the Japanese industry folks on what they checked out this year. Like I think you saw the ones that I translated, James. Like I think one of the ones that we found adorable was Fukuhara from Sai Games, director of Grand Blue Fantasy. He had a Roblox game as his number one because that's the game that he's playing with his son. Yeah. And like that's just so adorable. It's like this is my favorite game because this is the game that I played the most in my child school.
and like speaking of backlogs, I think that's going to be a little bit as we go. Our first session of our podcast, usually we talk about the relevant, topical games of the week. So obviously it's been more than a week, and lots of we had one review come out in December that we already talked about with Fantasia Neo Dimension. We had a couple other games come out in early January that we're going to be talking about, but I know a few of us also were working on our backlogs. I know Adam and myself both have different games that we wanted to talk about for this, but we're going to open up, I believe, with a review that went up on the site for the Freedom Wars Remastered. So this is a game that before we started recording, I had forgotten what this game was. I've never actually played it. And I thought Adam had played it, but I was confusing it with another game. So I need someone to explain to me what Freedom Wars is and why we're excited potentially that it got remastered. So in early January, while we were on break, James was put up the review for this game, and I know Josh has played it as well. So we'll start out there to kick off the discussion as kind of like our big topical game of the week, and then we'll kind of open it up to what we played over the last month, backlogs, things like that. But we'll hand it over to James to talk about Freedom Wars Remastered.
Okay, so I kind of started my review of the remaster kind of going over this because I feel like the historical context for this type of game is kind of interesting. So when the PSP was a thing, Monster Hunter was huge. So huge, in fact, that Nintendo courted the Monster Hunter team to make like the next entry in the series, the next couple of entries even, on the 3DS instead of the Vita. And because of that, there's a bunch of people that had a PSP, bought a Vita, and they loved Monster Hunter. So there was an opening for other developers to try and recapture or like capture some of that success that like Capcom had with Monster Hunter. Yes, you had like a couple of series that were on the PSP. Like I know that there was like God Eater got started on the PSP. There was a really like I don't even know if Josh even remembers this, but there was like Lord of Arcana that was
I remember that. Yeah.
the Square Enix one. There was a
Uh-huh.
sequel for that was on that was like a Vita launch title we never got, which is really funny. But yeah, so a bunch of developers tried really hard to capture some of that success. You had like Tokiden kind of blow up a bit more. It's still such a shame that Tokiden 2 never got like an expansion because I feel like that was the closest to getting there. Same thing, I guess, with Wild Hearts last year, but besides the point. And Sony basically funded a couple of games to try and like capture that audience too. One of them was Soul Sacrifice, which did get an expansion, Soul Sacrifice Delta. And I feel like most people would agree that was the more successful of the two in the West and like critically. But Freedom Wars was really successful in Japan. And it has an interesting sort of premise where it's not just like a hunting action game where it's like you're hunting monsters, but it had a big twist on it. It's post-apocalypse where pretty much the remainder of humanity are all like within these underground panopticon like major like massive cities, and because of there's being no like resources, they have to fight over what resources that are available, including people with specific skills, citizens that can be useful for trying to like deal with what resources they have. And so the gameplay loop is that instead of hunting monsters specifically, you're going up against abductors, which have people that have been abducted. So the goal of the missions isn't to kill the abductors necessarily, but to rescue the citizens and retrieve them, which is a very different sort of gameplay loop than what Monster Hunter does. And it's really fascinating. But yeah, so the remaster came out like I think 2 days ago. Yeah, 2 days ago. It's a bit of a rocky start. There's like some crashing issues on PC. I didn't run into any of it. I do notice that people have mentioned that like from a stability standpoint, like Steam Deck, ironically enough, has been the safer bet, and that definitely matches up with my experience. I put like the majority of my time in on Steam Deck and didn't have any issues. Performance has some weird hiccups that seems to be software related. Mikhail mentioned as much in his Steam Deck and like ROG Ally and basically overall impressions piece for like port stability and whatnot. We both kind of ran into that thing where it's
I
like,
was looking into some of the issues with like what is going on with the PC side of things because this had the first few hours when it went up on Steam had like a mostly negative Steam reception from the Steam reviews, and then it's gone up to mixed still, and then I think we're still waiting at the current moment of like a patch to fix it. But I was looking over the Steam forums to see what was some of the underlying causes. I think people have pinned it down to people on Windows 11 and like one of the latest updates for Windows 11. Apparently, there's been like some historic
my god,
kind of rough things between EAC and Windows 11.
Okay, 24H2, that would do it. I heard about games. Oh my god, this is going to be complete tangent. Microsoft, what's your fucking problem? There's been so many games and so much software that's had issues with the most recent features update for Windows 11. This quarter is the first time Windows 11 has lost people on the Steam hardware survey because people have been going back to Windows 10.
Yeah, so it seems like some percentage of the issues are people who are on Windows 11 systems and that update. So that really, but it seems like people on Windows 10 seem to be faring better in that regard. But and then people are like saying majorly like, hey, but if you run this on Steam Deck, it's like you said, mostly fine without issues. You won't crash on Steam Deck.
Yeah.
So it's a crazy thing, but hopefully they get it patched and fixed, and obviously Microsoft at their end needs to get this issue solved on whatever's happening
I
there too.
legitimately think if they cannot like bunker down and fix this shit with the next feature update, like Valve just announced that SteamOS is going public. There's like a Lenovo handheld that is releasing with SteamOS, and when asked about, they said that they would love to have SteamOS on set-top boxes. I know plenty of people that if their main thing they do is gaming on PC, they're ready to ditch Windows at this point.
Yeah, you have like if you're thinking like a dedicated gaming machine with just Steam games, that's definitely a viable option. Like obviously, I don't know how well SteamOS plays nicely with other software that you would use on a computer like on a daily basis, but if you're just doing it as running games,
personally speaking, for me, like the main thing I would want to do is like video editing. My main video editor, which is DaVinci Resolve, has native Linux support, so
that's cool.
So literally, I'm just sitting here waiting for the last bit of like issues with NVIDIA GPUs to get fixed up, which seems to be like in the next like month or so, and I might just be like, okay, yeah, I don't care. Like Avowed, I'll be able to play on Game Pass on SteamOS or like whatever Linux distro, because the way that's working is through Battle.net, which works on Wine. So there's no reason for me to stick with
my
Windows.
current path is sticking to Windows 10 until Steam says you can't have Windows 10 anymore. I'm like, no, Steam, don't do it. No,
Yeah,
don't
that's
do
where
it, Valve.
that's where I'm at. And also, I probably won't do anything like drastic, like go to SteamOS, unless I like personally run into major issues, which I haven't yet because I'm on Windows 10. But I do have 2 tower PCs built right now in my room. Like I could just leave one on Windows for editing and do one for SteamOS. Maybe, I don't know.
Dang. Yeah, this is a whole dedicated machine just for gaming. The whole other one just to
Everything
do other
else,
normal
or
things.
yeah.
That's funny.
Look like the good old days when you had a dedicated PC just for handling like streaming, so you didn't have to have the excess resources on the other one. Some people still do that.
Yeah,
But
some
most of
people
the
still
time,
hook up to PCs for streaming.
Yeah.
And it's a crazy setup. Like I wish I had the budget to do it, but I don't have the space, or I don't want to run
Yeah.
that much power either.
You could just get one of those like mini PCs and then like have that as the
that's
stream
true.
setup. Yeah.
Yeah, I forgot they do that.
But besides the point, Freedom Wars Remastered, it's really neat. This remaster doesn't solve all of the issues the original game had. For one, it never got an expansion, so the game does feel a bit incomplete. But just looking at the number of reviews on Steam, it seems like the remaster is doing all right. Besides, like, the reviews are mixed because of the state of the PC port, but like 617 reviews for a late remaster, like a decade old, like a remaster of a decade old Vita game. That seems actually pretty good, and I'm sure it's doing gangbusters on Switch in Japan. And like, didn't they say that if this did well enough, they would like to do a Freedom Wars 2?
Yeah, that's what they said.
Like an actual Freedom Wars 2, not Sword Art Online Fatal Bullet, which was unofficially Freedom Wars 2.
And back in the day, like the gimmick with this that like separated from other Monster Hunter clones back on like the Vita on Sony systems, like the grappling hook thorn system. So there's a lot more like aerial mobility compared to the other competition for Monster Hunter clones. Because as you said, yeah, there was Tokiden, then you had God Eater that started on the PSP. You had Soul Sacrifice you mentioned. You had
it's really funny how probably the reason why Tokiden 2 had the like demon arm grapple thing was not because they came up with it themselves. They probably saw Freedom Wars and were like, "Oh shit." That's probably what happened.
So I wonder what their metrics are for this to be quote unquote success, enough to have confidence in like doing another Freedom Wars like brand new follow up. And two, like, what does this relationship with Sony look like in terms of like licensing other titles like Soul Sacrifice in the future? Maybe.
Yeah,
if they could get that sorted out.
I need them to do Soul Sacrifice because, like, a lot of people I've talked to were way more iffy on Soul Sacrifice than I was, and I think part of that is that the combat system was basic in the original release. Delta really did improve things. It's still not, the combat isn't the main draw of Soul Sacrifice, even though I do think Delta's combat is at least decent. But man, that story, that soundtrack, it's so good. It's so good.
It's not like in terms of like combat and gameplay, it's like not the most stellar in terms of like the Monster Hunter clones alone, but like when you factor in, like you said, the story, the atmosphere, like the just the general like what drives you through through the playing that game, like the reasons why you're doing things, like it's a lot more compelling compared to the competition, especially when like they're talking to like a fleshy talking book inside like a prison cage cell as as a part of the story setup. You're like, damn,
Yeah.
this is
I
definitely doing
do, I
something
do.
that other games aren't doing.
Yeah, I do think though that like you even see it now in Freedom Wars, and like one of the things I mentioned is that you can tell that this was originally a Vita game of how like small the maps are, which does stand out, which is funny considering like Tekken 2 is also on the Vita, and I don't think you really feel it most of the time, but yeah, like Soul Sacrifice would be even more of it, especially because like the way that game is structured is I don't think it would really work on anything like in the modern day besides like a Switch or a Steam Deck, just because of the like the storybook, like almost VN, well, yeah, VN aesthetic, like literal VN, like it's like an actual like VN graphic novel where how the story is told. That's like, and that's like on the Vita, that was really, really cool. On a TV, maybe not so much. I guess we'll see if it happens.
I'm kind of interested in hearing like the reception of people who started Monster Hunter with World and then maybe moved on to Rise and like are waiting for Wilds. Like, I wonder if they picked up Freedom Wars. Like, what's their like reaction and reception to it as someone who are like, relatively new
If
to the genre.
if you're still waiting for Monster Hunter Wilds and you're on a PlayStation 5 or a somewhat beefy PC, I'm just gonna say it again. You should pick up a month of EA Play and actually try Wild Hearts, because that game is really good. And genuinely, I think that's better than like at least half of the Monster Hunters I've played, and that's not me exaggerating.
Yeah, and the Wild Hearts was like just an unfortunate case. Like it left a really bad first impression for people, but I'd have to assume at this point they patched up the performance
A
issue.
little bit, but also I think part of it is that it was like one of the first proper current gen only, which meant that like CPU wise, it was way more demanding than people expected. And nowadays, that has been 2 years. Maybe you're more likely to have like a Zen 4 or like a current generation Intel CPU, so it won't be a major issue. But yeah.
I need people who will get a 5090 and have a 9800 X3D to report back on Wild Hearts performance.
Get back to me in a month.
I saw one headline that I don't know if you can elucidate or shine some light on, James. I saw some like confusions about AI voices or ADR or something like that.
So this is really funny. A lot of people that did not play Freedom Wars back in the day don't realize that your accessory, which is like your robot NPC companion that is also your warden looking over you, because like again, you're in a panopticon, like you're like Big Brother and all that. There's also like the announcer for like the cutesy public service announcer for the panopticon that also has like a robotic voice. That was like text to speech in Japanese, and in fact, one of the features that the original game had on like in the Japanese Vita version was because it was text to speech and because Japanese is phonetically consistent, it meant that if you inputted your name in Japanese, your accessory could call you by your name because it was very easy to do so. That is not a thing. That was not a thing in the English version, even though there was no dub. It was still the Japanese voice track. But because a lot of people, if they played it on Vita, they might not have realized it was text to speech, even though
I probably just like, yeah, I don't remember anything about that, even though I played it like way back. It's been some time, a lot of people.
Yeah, and like I said, it Japanese is one of those languages where it is much easier to get text to speech to sound right. I mean, that is literally how like Vocaloid is a thing. So.
Yeah,
granted, Vocaloid is a little bit different because you also have like
it's just a weird disconnect for modern audiences because like you don't really hear English text to speech
Yeah.
that much.
And frankly, and this might be a bit of a hot take, but considering the original release, it was text to speech. If they even had used AI, I wouldn't have even like raised that much of an eyebrow, just because that was how it was in the original text to speech. You just used the like, I don't know. Maybe that's too spicy, but yeah.
Yeah, it's one of those weird things. Like I remember, like the last time people kind of made a fuss about it in gaming is like when in the finals when they use AI voices
Yeah.
for like the announcer.
Yeah,
So
that would be a different thing. Like
yeah,
the only reason I say that I wouldn't have even have been too upset is like originally it was text to speech. If they just used like a more modern version of that, it's like I don't know. Again, spicy, but it's not AI
yes,
in
yeah,
English.
that's
It's
the
not
point.
AI in Japanese. It's just literally it was text to speech when it originally came out, and this is the first time it had a dub, so they had to use text to speech for the English script. Which, because like I said, Japanese is phonetically consistent. That is much easier to do. English is not. It's a hell language, which meant there was very, very easy to tell that it was text to speech.
And yeah, you have to explain to like more unfamiliar or younger audiences like what's the difference between like AI voices and text to speech and why they're
So
not
there
exactly
used to
the
be
same.
so there used to be a thing. One of the last great innovations that Microsoft added to Windows. It was a little program called Microsoft Sam.
Yep.
But yeah,
Uh, so yeah, that clears it. It's just a lot of people just it caught them off guard, so it's okay.
No, I guess yeah. No, AI is kind of people seeing ghosts. Trying to explain
And I
something
say,
that they
especially with like
otherwise don't know
it's
the
just
details
yes,
of.
yeah, especially when you even with CES is like just like in the rear view mirror and a whole of course
Yeah.
the big focal point of CES this year was
This isn't here or there, but I remember this kind of meme tweet that went viral. That's like, I remember when AI just meant the grunts in Halo threw a grenade at you and went wart wart wart.
yeah. Yeah. Uh,
I mean, not on a gaming front, but it's really annoying when you're seeing like software vendors for like equipment tooling and like sciencey stuff. Like it used to just be called machine learning. It was just basically at a very high level teaching machines to recognize patterns. But they're trying to get their investors and their income, and they're like, it's AI powered. Everything's AI, even the technology itself is not generative AI, or if it's not actually like new, it's just permeating all the
yeah,
fields right now.
yeah.
So,
Not to mention like half the stuff that Nvidia was trying to really push this CES is embarrassing as hell. Like the neural faces thing, where it's like we're gonna have photorealistic faces that cross the uncanny valley, so it actually looks real. And it's like you look at it, it's like this is just
these
that
are both
shitpost.
uncanny valley.
Well, no, I'd say beforehand it was less uncanny valley, even because it's like, oh my god, they made the yassified alloy image fucking real.
Yeah.
yeah,
That's not the
they're
same
basically they're
woman.
basically
That's not
changing
the
like
same woman.
yeah
You
they're
made
basically
her
changing like
white.
yeah they're basically changing like actual facial features and structure to make them more of like a to make them look more of like another ethnic group during the conversion quote unquote conversion processing, which is not great. When you're like trying to like make like maybe a more like Middle Eastern person look a bit more Western in that quote unquote conversion AI conversion. It's not good.
Yep.
Not to go on a huge tangent on AI. The thing I just worry about is like if you have less humans making art or prose or whatever, like once AI starts training or like iterating on its own generations, like what in the world does that look like? And I am not educated enough to know
Yeah, they
what that could
very
end up being.
yeah, they very deliberately don't allow like AI to train itself on other AI because that just causes stuff to fall apart. Which is why you had like these AI companies like complaining about folks using like Blaze and whatnot. Because if they try to like grab an image to train it and it's been glazed, that can cause problems. And it's like, oh, it's like terrorism. It's like you're the one scraping like unauthorized, dude. What I mean, fucking
Uh, yeah,
yeah.
it's a mess. It's gonna continue to be a mess, and I don't know if there's a great way out of the situation. That's the unfortunate reality.
I feel like Adam's timestamps on this are going to be like Freedom Wars and also AI, not in Freedom Wars, just in general. But yeah,
there's
so
the
James
real
put up
freedom wars right now. Okay.
Is now a good time to mention I work at a company that basically is going all in on AI? I'm
work
in
at a
the
tech
I'm in the
company
science
that's-
lab. I'm in the science
Yeah.
lab. I'm just in the
Yeah.
basement.
You have no control over it.
If it makes you feel better, Adam, you work at a tech company. That's every tech company right now.
Well, so James has the review for Freedom Wars Remastered up on the site. And we do have one more review that came out in early January. That is the review for Ys Memoire, the Oath in Felghana. So this is the remaster for Ys 3, Oath in Felghana. It was originally announced, Adam, correct me if I'm wrong, it was originally announced as Switch exclusive, also made its way to the PlayStation consoles. So we had Mikhail review. It came out in Japan a while ago, a couple years ago, and finally came out in globally just this month. And Mikhail's review is up on the site, basically wondering if this could be the definitive version of this game. He ended up walking away a little bit more lukewarm, saying it is a very, very good portable version of this game, but also that the existing PC version is also very good. So basically would recommend both wholeheartedly. So it has obviously nice toggles between the new art style and the traditional one, and a few other bells and whistles. But we do also have that review up on the site. So go to rpgsite.net and just hit the review tab, and it should be like in the top 3 for most recent reviews.
I'm so
So go ahead and give that a
surprised.
read.
I'm still surprised having read it. There was like, this is apparently based on the PSP version. It's like, why would you do that? Why would you do that? Yeah.
And it's one of those things where a lot of times when I see like new art for these games that get redone, is that I find myself preferring the old art. But actually on this one, I'm like, oh, is that what the old art looked like? My brain, like, I forgot. Like, I do think I actually prefer the new art.
I have brain rot when it comes to art revisions from Falcom games because I still have like kind of like PTSD from the Trails Evolution
Yeah.
games. So
Yeah, most of the time I prefer the original art, but in this case, I looked at it, I'm like, you know what? On this case, I do think I like the new art.
I'm just glad that the Trails in the Sky remake, the art style looks a lot closer to the original art. It's
And not
still
Evolution,
slightly different, but it's like it
It looks incredibly
maintains.
faithful.
Yeah, it feels faithful, and it's like, oh, thank God. Oh, thank God.
yeah, it seems like they're really striking a good balance of that new art direction for that game.
And Mikhail did a good job on the review, showing some direct comparisons of the existing PC version and the new Ys Memoire version of the game.
Anyways, if you haven't played Felghana, you just should. You can beat it in a weekend, and it's one of the best Ys games.
It's one of those like if you like action RPGs, just play it. Just don't even think about it. Just play.
Yeah,
Felghana.
if you want to have a good time and you want to have like, if you're like me and you're a sicko that plays like 52 games a year to try and like maybe in vain keep a clamp down your backlog, you can go through Ys 1, 2, 6, which is Arkham and Pishtim, Oath in Felghana, and Origin, probably in like a long weekend, like genuinely,
Or at least a week at best.
But
Yeah.
but if you're scared if you need to know any of previous Ys games, you don't. You can just go into Oath and Felghana just right away. You don't need to have played any other Ys game or whatever. Just it's a good pick up and play game on its own. It's just always a good time to play.
And actually, remind me, this takes place after. If you've recently played East Nordics, it's right after. No, or Nordics is right before Celceta. That's right. I got it.
It's after
backwards.
Celceta in the timeline. Someone get the Ys timeline.
Not that the
Someone
timeline
get the chart.
really matters. Yeah,
All
doesn't
right,
really
I
matter.
think it's Ys
But
1,
yeah,
then 2, then 10, then 4, then 3, then 5, then 8, then 6, then 7, then 9.
Sounds
You
right.
missed Origin.
His mind is
Origin's
still
at the
trapped.
front, I think.
Yeah.
Origin's on the failed hero timeline.
Yeah, so it's like get out that chart. Like if the people try to do like a SMT or Mega 10 timeline chart, do that for Ys.
Josh, why do I have the fucking East timeline memorized?
I don't know why you. I was like, why are you listing it off like that? You make it sound like you haven't memorized. Oh no, you do.
And we do also have just one more feature on the site, and this one is pretty topical. Obviously, one of the releases that's coming up in January that we'll probably be talking about, I think, next week is the remaster for Tales of Graces. Of course, was originally announced, Wii exclusive. When it came out globally, it was the kind of the international version, Trails of Graces F. Got released on PS3, and it's got being remastered and being released on PC and all the modern consoles. And during that announcement, the team over at Namco Bandai basically affirmed a commitment to having a regular cadence of remastering the Tales series. And of course, we decided to have a little fun with this, and Scott White, one of our contributors, put together a listicle of games we'd like to see remastered from that series. So he put up. He's a huge fan of the series. When he showed his like tabletop with all the games on there, like he is a collector. So he kind of put up what he'd like to see. You know, if Namco Bandai Namco
I like how
is
you
going
called
to
it
be.
Namco Bandai because like showing your age.
I still get them backwards. I forget like what does it used to be and what is it now.
Is
Like
it Aris or Aris? I don't get it.
yeah. Yeah, but so obviously we'll be talking about Tales of Graces after the remastered version, and either next week or the week after, and then also just a fun little listicle to look ahead at. After that, what would we like to see? You know, we all wanted to see Zilla like a few years ago, and then it was a Symphonia again. But that's in the can, so now it can be Zilla.
He has Eternia, so it's a good list. You know, that's the number one. I could care less about the rest if they got or couldn't care less about the rest if they just got Eternia first.
Yeah, and it's one of those things where like the easy answer is any of the ones that haven't been officially localized, or all of them. Yes, there you go. Those are the two easy answers. But that we do have that fun little listicle up on the site as well. I guess here we can talk about just our backlogs that we've been kind of going through. So maybe I'll just start off here. So I have basically spent December and January playing 2 games. December, I'm not going to spend a ton of time on this one or any time at all, really. The one game that before it didn't rank anywhere on our podcast for RPG of the Year, that I hadn't played was the Mario and Luigi Brothership. Adam talked about his time with that game, and Josh as well, back when it released last November. I kind of made that my holiday travel game because it's on a Switch, and I enjoyed it like a fair bit. Like I went into it with Adam's criticisms kind of in the front of my head. The criticisms about it just kind of feeling like it meanders a bit. Things take too long. It doesn't quite earn its runtime, things like that. But I ended up still feeling pretty positive on it, like enough that I put it in my 10 position on my list. I think a lot of that was I hadn't played a game in the series since Bowser's Inside Story, so it had been a bit. It was convenient to play on the Switch, and I think it is pretty faithful to the original Mario and Luigi art style. I think Acquire did a good job, like taking up the mantle on that. I do pretty much agree with Adam's criticisms and Josh's as well. But I thought it was a solid entry for that game. So that was kind of I'm glad that I played it during travel, like on the plane and things like that. And then
It's
the other
pretty
game,
interesting. Like before you hop off of that,
yeah, no worries.
on the Famitsu creator poll, Asano, the legendary figure in the RPG space, obviously, like ranked Mario and Luigi Brothership as his number 1 game
Oh,
list.
really?
Yeah,
Huh.
so I was really I wish someone somewhere could like get his thoughts on like what he thought about Brothership. It's not necessarily because I may be feeling negative. It's like I just want to hear from his like perspective what he thought what he thought about it. It's always interesting to see like what game creators and developers like they have a very interesting understanding of like when they approach like playing games, and always like what are they looking for, what do they think about it, and what do they value when they play games. So that was one of the more unusual but interesting picks.
Mhm.
I was looking for those.
I I know it's kind of arbitrary, but when I was playing through the game, I just kind of wished if you had the same framework of the game, but it took place just like in the Mushroom Kingdom in some fashion. Like obviously you have to change the theming around because you couldn't just have islands attached to a ship. But like the fact that it was kind of in like isekai world in a sense, like kind of just pulled me out of it a bit. Like I don't should I care about this place? Are we ever going to see this place again? Sort of thing. Everyone looks like these. Like the theming is fun and cute, but
I
only
don't know. The
surface level
original
for
game
me.
takes place in the Bean Bean Kingdom, and that game is awesome.
That's true. I like how there's the beans are still like the upgrade items, like just
Oh
cause
yeah,
like don't ask questions. Yeah. But the other game I've been playing actually, because I'm looking ahead to February, and February is insane.
Slightly less
And I
insane
know
now.
we talk about things being insane for often. So now like I mean it this time, promise me. But like one the earliest game that I'm got listed in February that I'm interested in is Kingdom Come Deliverance 2, even though I had never played the first game. So my January game, I'm about 30 hours in, has been Kingdom Come
Nice.
Deliverance.
How's
Now, I'm not
Henry?
gonna spend yeah, I'm not gonna spend a ton of time on this because we've spent I know Adam's talked about it before, and we're gonna have a lot of chance to talk about it probably in comparison to the sequel, when Kingdom Come Deliverance 2 comes out. So my main takeaway is I think for me, it's been a while since I've played a game of this sort. A lot of the games that I played in 2024 are really like very strongly narratively focused. Like there's something either pushing you forward or pulling you along. Um, it's always kind of like high stakes all the time. And I'm painting with a broad brush there. Not every game is like that all the time. But the thing about Kingdom Come Deliverance is that the pacing is just much slower. And I think I was in a position where I actually really appreciate that, where I turn it on and there's not like something that's like immediately like high stakes set piece. It's kind of like, what do I want to do? Do I want to like practice with the captain of the guard to train up my combat? Do I want to do some quests? Do I want to try to steal that thing that I got caught with last night? Like it's very open ended. It's very much like uh earned experience, like Saga-esque in terms of the you get better at whatever you try to get better in sort of thing. Very, true to like capital R role playing in that sense. So I think it's just been really kind of like chill in that sense. And I think the environment, the pace of combat and all that all kind of contributes to it. So I'm really just kind of like enjoying zenning out to it while I, have another podcast or a YouTube video or something on or a sports game on the side. So I've really just been enjoying that. I also do enjoy how it does focus on making things quasi realistic or immersive without going too far. Like they talk about like if you wear, metal armor and spurs, you're gonna make a ton of noise and you're not gonna be able to sneak anywhere. So you got to have your gear that allows you to sneak. You can't just be a master stealth, ninja off the bat, things like that. Adam's already talked about you suck at everything starting out. So I'm not gonna drill too much into that. But I also do like how there are some places where they realize that some convenience is okay. Like the fact that you can kind of summon your horse from anywhere is one of those things that like it could take you out of the moment, but it's done in a way where it feels like okay, I'm willing to give this up. It can be more realistic here, but still I can whistle and my horse will show up from anywhere. Because otherwise it would just be too cumbersome to ever engage in that mechanic. If you had to leave your horse and bring it along everywhere, I would just never use my horse. That sort of thing. There are some things that almost lean too far in convenience. Like I think Adam talked about this in his review. The fact that you can just access your horse's saddlebags from anywhere is a bit silly. Like, oh, I just stole this thing from the blacksmith, so I'm just gonna apparate it over to my horse and then pick it up later. Is a little bit like, okay, that seems like it defeats the purpose a bit. But I'm enjoying the story. It's kind of low stakes. It's kind of more vibes than narrative, so to speak, if that makes sense. I really do like how the side quests really like they have bespoke cutscenes. They're integrated into the story in a way where it's like it feels like it fits, but if you didn't do it this way or if you didn't engage with the side quest, you don't miss out on like critical information. But everything kind of builds to establish the environment that the game takes place in. So, I think just a couple nights ago, I was watching Adam stream on Discord as I was training in combat, so I finally feel like I'm not terrible with a sword. I can finally sneak around and not steal just from, like, sleeping homeless people. Uh, so, I'm enjoying it a lot, and I'm hoping that I can finish it up and then not be burned out for Kingdom Come Deliverance 2. But I'm glad that I decided to make this my January kind of
Yeah,
backlog game.
cool. Yeah, it's a really interesting game. Yeah, and it's just one of those things. It's like you kind of really start out at the bottom and you feel it. You really feel it.
I guess my one anecdote that was kind of fun is that early in the game you have to do a hunting quest, so you get decent with the bow, and then like I was doing only main quests, which is probably a bad idea because
Okay.
there was one quest where I had to fight three dudes and I was terrible. Like so, the only way I could find to beat them was basically to get my bow and arrow to a sword fight and just keep backpedaling and like
Nice.
please hit him in the head, please hit him in the head, please hit him in the head.
Come on,
And
Henry.
yeah, and eventually, after I succeeded through that, I'm like, all right, time to actually like go to the guard and like actually spend like a real life hour Like, all right, let's practice. And it feels a little bit phony because like I don't feel like my skill with the game got any better. But the thing about RPGs is that a lot of the different a key difference between an RPG and an action game is that an RPG like your ability to perform combat or whatever is tied to a number, which you can then train up in kind of this um what's the word?
Abstracted.
In a way, yeah, abstracted, that's a way. Like, my character got better with these gear because I spent time in game practicing, even though, like, and I'm sure in a small way, like, I understood, like, the feinting and the parry system a little better, but it was mostly just the fact that I put in the time to do that. I grinded, so to speak. Um, but
I've
I'm having a good first impression with it, and I'm excited to see like how they get that same vibe. Because if by the end of this game I'm like a god walking amongst mere mortals and I can steal from everything, like how is Henry going to be like starting from the bottom again in Kingdom Come Deliverance 2 if if they want to have that same feeling? Like how do they contextualize that? I'm curious to see how they do.
Can you imagine, like, if you that fight of you just backpedaling against those sword fighters, like without instead of like a first person perspective, it's like a second hand perspective, like just on looking. You just see this guy walking back, shooting arrows at point blank, going, "Please don't
Yeah.
hit me."
I really like the first person. Like whenever a game gives me a first person perspective, well, I won't say whenever. Usually when a game gives me a first person perspective option, that's what I choose. And I don't know if I'm a fossil or an old head, like it makes it more immersive. I truly believe that's true. There are some cases where the melee combat really at first person feels kind of clunky.
Mm.
I don't know if I'm 100% sold on it, but it's not bad. It's fine. But just in general, like exploring a kind of a wide scoped RPG like this, I tend to prefer first person. Like Avowed, I'm planning to play in first person. Cyberpunk, I had no qualms being in first person, things like that. I know for some people, of course, it makes the motion sick. Obviously, I don't want anyone to feel sick playing a game. So you could argue, and I mean this genuinely, that a third person is a what's the word?
Accessibility.
Yeah, an accessibility concern for them, or that at least give you options to toggle like head bob and a cursor if you want it, for first person to try to minimize those. And then of course some people just say like I feel more immersed in third person because I want to see what my character is in relation to everything around them. So, people have opinions and opinions are good. But I'm enjoying the first person
Mhm.
for Kingdom Come. Before we started recording, Adam, you had talked about a game that you were playing as kind of a backlog entry during the break.
Okay, you want me to talk about it?
Yeah,
Okay,
I mean,
so
unless you don't want to,
no, I can.
I'm not
I
holding
can.
you
I can.
hostage.
So I was traveling for the holidays. So, gonna be traveling. I gotta, what that means. I gotta make sure my PSP is all charged and ready to go.
Right.
So I could play it on the plane and in the airport. Anyways,
Mm.
so yeah, I have a handful of games in my backlog that I'm like deciding what do I want to like maybe tackle as I'm traveling, as I'm away from home, as I'm away from my computer and my consoles and whatnot. And this year, what I decided on was I was going to play The Legend of Heroes on PSP.
Oh, everyone likes that. Everyone
Yeah.
loves Legend of Heroes.
So, I mean the Gagharv trilogy, or it's Gagharv. I don't know how you
Gagharv?
pronounce it. It's Gagharv. I don't think this has ever been said like verbally. I don't know. These games don't have voice acting, but
Gagharv.
anyways, these are the Legend of Heroes games that took place, or they don't take place. They came before the Trails series. So before Trails in the Sky. Trails in the Sky is the sixth entry in the series, really. And then like the first two entries in the series are like the Dragon Slayer games actually. But entries 3, 4, and 5 are like their own little trilogy, and that they're usually called the Gugharv trilogy. I'm probably never going to say that word
Trails
again.
before Trails.
Yes. Now, I knew going into this, some people out there are probably saying, or probably thinking to themselves right now, oh God, he played the PSP versions. Those versions are shit. Which, yes, there's an argument there. I knew going in that these versions, they are not actually made by Falcom. They're made by Microvision 20 years ago or whenever it was for the PSP. Obviously, the original games were made by Falcom back in the 90s, but the PSP versions were basically licensed out to Namco Bandai, or actually I think it was just Bandai at the time, and then the games themselves were, or actually I might be saying this wrong. They were basically ported, remade, developed by Microvision, and then Bandai was the one who like localized them for the West. And these are still to this day the only official English localized versions of the game. And also the English localizations on these games range from outright terrible to sort of terrible. They're not good. But I kind of knew
all that going in.
Yeah, I knew that all going in. But to me, I'm just like, let me just kind of play how it would have been had I bought these, when I was, graduating high school or whenever, back in the day, and had I played them back then as they were on PSP. That's kind of like my approach, and just this is what it would have been like. And then maybe going forward, if I ever have the desire to, I can revisit it with a different version, maybe with the fan translation or whatever. But I kind of wanted to play it as it would have been. But anyways, I don't want to spend too much time on this. I'm not going to like go over each of the 3 games in a lot of detail. It's actually kind of very interesting and very can be confusing if you're not familiar. So keep this straight. 1 is 4, 2 is 3, and 3 is 5. Got it?
What? No.
Yeah. 1 is 4, 2 is 3, and 3 is 5. What I mean by that is, so the first game in the trilogy that came out in the West, and it's just called The Legend of Heroes, A Tear of Vermilion. It's called the first game, but it's actually the 4th game. And it's not even by being the 4th game, it's actually the 2nd game in the trilogy. The way that these are localized is very weird. The 2nd game in the trilogy, and that's called A Tear of Vermilion. Then in the West, the 2nd game, The Legend of Heroes 2, Prophecy of the Moonlight Witch, is really the first game in the Gagharv trilogy that was made. So that's actually number 3. So they kind of came out backwards in the West, where 4 came out before 3. And then, of course, in the West, they got rid of like the 3 and the 4, and they just called it 1 and 2, because those first 2 Dragon Slayer games, they just pretend those never existed. I know this is confusing and kind of intentionally so, but and also the timeline's also a little bit weird, where the first game that came out, which is Prophecy of the Moonlight Witch, that one is actually like takes place after the games that came later. Like, it's very confusing. Not all these are chronological timeline here. There's also like the in-game timeline is also different. Anyways, let me just do it individually. So probably my least favorite game in the series is Prophecy of the Moonlight Witch. That's number 3, like in actuality. That's the first one in the Gagharv trilogy and the number 3 overall. You can kind of tell that this one came out first. I think this one came out in like 1991 or something like that, like originally. And you can kind of tell it's a little bit more basic. It's a little bit more straightforward, a bit more simple. The characters are a little bit more plain. It's kind of a relatively straightforward kind of traverse the world quest, and I won't get too much into it. The 2nd game in the series, which is A Tear of Vermilion, is my favorite of the 3. And have you played these, Josh?
I've only played a little bit of them. I didn't complete any of them. I was just a little bit.
This is where we're missing Chow. I'm almost positive he's played
them. I know. Yeah,
has James played them?
What's that?
I've not played them. I intend to play the PC originals eventually.
Yeah. And also I should mention that the gameplay is totally different. Anyways, A Tear of Vermilion is my favorite, and I'll maybe get to that in just a bit. That one is like I said, it was the 2nd one that came out in this trilogy, although it was the first one that came out in the West. And then the last one in the series is Song of the Ocean, or sometimes Cage Song of the Ocean, which is
I don't think
5.
I played that one. I know I played Witch Prophecy and Tear of Vermilion. I don't think I played that 3rd one.
Yeah, the Cage Song of the Ocean probably is it's the longest and probably the most intricate, and has maybe a few more gameplay things going for it. But I also feel like the characters are just not as interesting, and the story is not as interesting as A Tear of Vermilion. So let me just I don't want to go through all of these games like step by step.
So
Is this also like your general like vibe with the trilogy?
So the one that felt most to me like Trails in the Sky, because it kind of came out in that era just before, right, is A Tear of Vermilion. And let me explain it to you this way. It's the game that I felt had the most heart to it and also has the strongest hook in it, like a reason to play it, to kind of see it through. So early in the game, this is going to be spoilers for early game Tear of Vermilion. I'll explain it this way. So this might take just a minute, so bear with me. I feel like Tear of Vermilion has the most heart to it and kind of was the most endearing. Early in the game, you're playing as two of the main characters, and they're in like an isolated little town or village or monastery. There's a brother and a sister. The brother's name is Avin, and the sister's name is Imel. And early in the game, they're like age 9, 10, 11, like they're young. They're attacked and they're separated. And basically, they're both safe, but Avin finds himself in another town, not his hometown. He has no idea where his sister Imel is. And they have a very strong sibling bond, and he's devastated. He has no idea where she is, has no idea where to start. He's just feeling down and out. And in this town, again, he's kind of on his own by himself. He meets another character, a third character named Mile. So Avin, Imel, and Mile are three of the main characters in this game, and there are more too. And Avin and Mile kind of create a little friendship, both kind of being alone in this little town. And, they're like 11 or 12, they kind of create this strong friendship as young boys. And this is going to sound a little corny, and how corny it sounds might depend on how I describe it. But there's a festival going on in the town, and Miles is trying to cheer Avin up about his missing sister. And one of the festival games, it's like a good luck charm sort of game. What they do is they take their charm and they throw it into the river. And basically the charm, it's like a little creek actually in the town. And the charm basically floats down the creek. And if it reaches the end, it's good luck and your wish will come true. You make a wish on the charm. And Avin puts together his charm. He throws it in the river. And of course he shouts out, "I want to see Imel again," his sister, who he has no idea where she is. And he's watching his charm going down the river, and it sinks. And that means his wish isn't going to come true. And of course, he's not like he truly believed it, but he's just kind of like upset. Like, even this silly festival game can't give me any hope or optimism. And then Mile comes and tosses his charm into the river, and he says, "I want Avin to see his sister again." And then Avin's like, wait, why'd you do that? Why did you waste your wish on me? And Miles says, no, it's okay. My wish came true last year. And then, of course, Avin's like, well, what did you wish for last year? And Miles says, well, I've always been alone, and I've always wanted a friend.
Aww.
So it's a little corny, but there's a heart there.
It actually does sound really heartfelt the way that you described it.
So, and then they basically, the whole game basically is around these characters, Mile, Avin, Imel, and there's also another very even though the localization was not very good, like I could see it kind of sift through that poor dialogue. And there's other characters in the game like Rutis and Ruka that are also like kind of stuck with me more than other characters in this trio. So yeah, that was the game. Like if I were to revisit any of these entries, like their PC versions, it would be this one. So with much better gameplay and much better, hope. I'm assuming there's probably fan translations that are improvements over what was done.
And not that matter, but hopefully, just like one day they decide to do like official re-releases of these games to be more widely accessible to modern games.
I mean, it's that sort of character writing that I think endeared many people to the Falcom games in general. Like, so it's good to see that that they still have that talent. Even like these games aren't well regarded, like primarily due to the way that they're available in in English. But that still shines through, and that's the pedigree of the developer right there, for better or for worse. So what's next on your backlog list, or is there something in January that you're looking at?
I have not played Final Fantasy 16 yet. I need to play that PC version.
Yep.
Just boot up Tekken 8 and get Clive, and you play FF16.
Close enough. Okay.
Yeah.
I love all of those like memes people have been making with Clive and Tekken. Like one of the ones where somebody just captioned it, "What the fuck is a hot dog?"
What about James and Josh? Maybe we'll start with James, like what you've been playing over the break. I know this is not really the normal way we do this section of the podcast, but I figure for this first episode, let's all do it.
I've done nothing but raid in Final Fantasy XIV.
Did you beat the thing, or you're still working on
No.
it? Okay,
Mm.
got it.
But there's been momentum.
There has been momentum. I did actually it feels awkward to talk about now, but I did go back and play that VR Batman game. It's really good. Unfortunately, I can't in good conscience tell people to give Meta money, especially after this week. But
Yeah.
yeah.
But it's cool that game is cool. It's a good thing
Yeah.
that at least I forget. No, Rocksteady didn't make that, right? It was a totally different studio.
It was
right?
Camouflage who
Right,
did
yeah.
Iron Man VR. It's really funny how no, it's not really funny. It's unfortunate that like Rocksteady did Suicide Squad last year, and then Camouflage did this, and most people are never gonna touch this because not everyone is into VR. It's like a huge, like especially now, it's like um it is very much an Arkham game. It's not just like a gimmicky VR spinoff. It is probably my favorite Arkham game, and I know I'm not the only person that feels that way. It's really
That's
good.
cool. Is it more like I'd have to assume because of the scope of the game, it's more like Arkham Asylum over the open world ones
Yes,
that came out.
yes, it's like
Okay.
Arkham Asylum in scope, which I think is better. I think
Yeah.
it's better that way. So yeah.
So that's really cool that they were able to pull that off. Hopefully, like, do they have any? Is there any chance to see this game in other platforms besides Meta?
The development studio is owned by Meta.
Oh, okay. Well, that's probably not then.
Yeah.
But that's cool that came out. Hopefully, they see a lot of success with it in that regard, because it is hard to pull off a Batman VR game, I imagine, because you really have to sell that power fantasy to people in a really convincing way.
Mhm.
That's really
And
cool.
also kind of like the two populations, like I love the Arkham games and I'm hesitant on VR. I hope this gives me what I want, or I love VR. I want to be Batman. I hope this makes me feel like Batman.
Oh, yeah,
Sort of
I would
thing.
just want to be Batman, please.
And then I guess before we go into the news, Josh.
Aside from starting up a new day job, everyone kept talking about this little unknown game called Balatro, and I'm like, okay, I'll
Mhm.
try out this little game called Balatro, and that took up a lot of my holiday. Just like I definitely got that worm in me of like I just need just one more run before I go to bed. Just I can do better this time, please. So I got sucked up in that vortex and booted up again once in a while. Still, it's I can see why people find it addictive. I can see why.
Mhm. And with that, I think we've kind of covered all the game of the year stuff, all of our breaks, all of our backlogs, and talked about the relevant RPGs at very early January. We kind of even queued up what we're going to be talking about next week. So with that, we'll go into our news section, and this is roughly chronological, but like I said, it's kind of covering like a month's worth of news. Now it's a slow month, but it's still several weeks worth. So we can't go in detail as we do like when we go week by week. We'll start off with obviously the Game Awards. We'll go into some of the announcements out of Falcom, and then obviously as we got into 2025, just some of the stuff coming up this month with upcoming dates. A lot of the first quarter of the year is really solidified in terms of not only release dates but open betas, demos, and things like that. So starting off with the Game Awards, the Game Awards had a number of announcements. I know there was the reception to the Game Awards were largely positive, and one of the big headlines, of course, for the Game Awards as well as for our site is the formal cinematic reveal of The Witcher 4, and of course it did confirm that Ciri will be the protagonist of this game. So the trailer is like cinematic in nature, but it's made in like Unreal Engine 5 and it's meant to be like in engine. It's a sort of like wibbly, framing around that. But obviously it's kind of what we expected. I don't think it was really surprising, but I think it's cool to know that it's far enough along that they're willing to start uh showing it off, showcasing it like this. So
No,
no set release
I've
date,
never
though.
played Witcher, but I was under the
Mhm.
impression that the fact that the next game would have Ciri as the protagonist wasn't really a stretch. Like that was sort of
I think that's
expected.
expected. Yeah,
People,
yeah.
Yeah. I know
anyone that had
some people were
actually,
upset, but I kind of
yeah,
figured it was also
anyone that had
expected.
anyone that had actually played Witcher 3 has been expecting this for the last like
Yeah.
8.5 years.
Yeah, I
There,
knew
there
like I
is
actually
there.
got to the end of Witcher 3 for sure. Like most
Yeah.
definitely, you knew.
No, the thing is that like the thing that I've seen, and not just in the context of Witcher, but even in like Dragon Age or Mass Effect, and you'll see where I'm going with this, is that there are multiple endings to Witcher 3, and in some of them, she does not end up Ciri does not end up a Witcher. She can end up a queen. Uh, and it's like, well, in my Witcher 3, she wasn't a Witcher, so. How does my Witcher 3 carry into Witcher 4? And it sounds like I'm making that person up, but I've seen that. And I'm just
Yeah.
like games have multiple endings and they mean as much as you want them to mean. And then the developer said, well, here's a game or series of Witcher. Like it's a sort of thing where it's like, I guess I'm not in the mindset to really like understand that. Like when people can be upset about that, like that. So to me, like,
How can your happen? In my Drakengard one, I got this ending, you know? So how can you really
eh,
happen?
and I
And I'm
don't
like,
want to like
I'm just
belittle
playing.
that. I more
Yeah.
want to understand it. Like it doesn't make your ending of The Witcher 3 less
Yeah.
valid.
That's
Like I don't know. It's
what do you want
but
them to do? Do you want them to like make a game and that like the very start of it is like it's the we have five different starts depending on which ending you got. You know, they just committed to one and they think it's an interesting area to explore. It's okay. That doesn't mean that like what you experience is invalidated. You know, it's just like they made a decision on which narrative thread they wanted to follow.
Did either of
Mm.
you, or any of you, especially in the US, I guess we're all US, but uh in like middle school or high school, did you ever read the book The Hatchet? Is that what it's called?
Yes, yeah,
And
yeah.
they're like there's actually two separate sequels to that based on like
I
different.
remember this.
There's like
Yes.
there's like book 1, The Hatchet, book 2A and 2B, which are like two different like branching path like sequels, like depending
Right.
on what happens. And it's not even like a choose your own adventure book. It's just like, well, if this happens, it's this sequel. If this happens, it's this sequel. And then there's like a third book that ties them back. Some
I
people I
didn't know
think want
about
that
that
for
one.
games. They just want like two separate versions of The Witcher 4 depending. I'm joking, but that's what it reminded me of.
We did the Witcher Red and the Witcher Blue. I'll wait for the Witcher Yellow though. I
It's
heard that
funny
one
because I feel like
was a special
we've
edition.
had like games that have kind of done that where like down the road they will do like an alternate sequel for a game based off like a bad ending or something. So I mean that's neat. I always think it's kind of interesting when devs do it because it's like it, sometimes there can be some interesting stories when you take that route. Like it kind I guess one example, not really a game, but more of a visual novel is it wasn't executed perfectly, but I think the idea behind Steins Gate Zero was really interesting. The ending was really interesting. Uh
Yeah,
so
it's just difficult to like kind of do that in the realm of video games in terms of like what kind of game are you making, what's the scope of it, and like how do you decide to present it to people that they're not confused by it, what you're trying to do as well. Then so it's just so many. I think it's just like if the developers decide whether it's a new development team or not, because maybe it's been so long that like a lot of the development team has left. I think it's okay for a new team to decide whether they want to follow a narrative thread or not, or decide, hey, let's just do a new. It's not like I don't think people should ever be felt restricted or beholden by like oh, we feel like we're betraying the player because they had uh one of these endings and we decided to like follow up on this instead. I think that's kind of like a very narrow way of thinking about it. I think it's cool to explore. If you want to tell a story and you think there's something interesting to it and you want to go through with it, you shouldn't feel obligated to feel like you're betraying the players by who got a different ending. It's like, hey, you want to try something cool? Go for it. Dude, don't.
but and to be charitable, I do think that most people are
Yeah,
1,000% on board
yeah,
with this. Like it
yeah.
is a vocal minority. At least I sure hope it is. But yeah,
Yeah,
this honestly, this
I'm not saying those people could get fucked. I'm just saying, like, be open, be more open minded all around. Of like,
yeah.
just because they're doing this doesn't mean that like what you experience. Because obviously, what you experience is it's to you that you should cherish that the time that you spent with it and be like, hey, that was a cool game. I'm willing to try out like what they're trying out, what they're doing this time around too, because I liked what they did before.
And CD Projekt has, after the fact, in like different interviews, said that Geralt will have a presence in the story, though we don't know. Like they're keeping it up, like exactly how is going to be a mystery. But he will be, in the game in some fashion.
It'll be like dressed out like an Organization 13 member who like really wants to play cards and always wants to like
I like that. He's your Gwent mentor.
yeah.
Like, yeah, there you go. Like that idea. And yeah, as for the rest of the trailer, like it's mostly it's almost like a 6-minute mini episode of like a day in the life
It's
of
a long
Siri. Like it's
cutscene.
yeah, basically. So brass tack details are more kind of speculative at this point. Like no release window, and you could glean from this little cutscene like what you might see in the game as a gameplay like feature, but like the press release doesn't even say like here's what to expect. We have this feature and this feature and this, like it's more just saying like, yep, we're proud of what we're working on. We're at the stage of our development where we can start showing it off. Here's what it is. Here's our idea for a story. It's going to star Siri, and obviously we're going to keep tabs on it throughout the next, hopefully just a couple years, but we don't know for sure
And if you're itching
about
for
this game's progress.
yeah, if you're itching for a playable Geralt again, that Witcher 1 remake is still ongoing as well, as far as we
And
know.
remind me that Witcher 1 remake is being made by Fool's
Fool's
Theory, who
Theory.
made the Thaumaturge.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's like, oh, that seems very different, but
I'm
cool.
interested. Yeah, they're very very cool. But I remember
Everything I've heard from Josh and everyone else about the Thaumaturge and what specifically I like about Witcher 1 tells me that remake is going to be really, really good.
Yeah,
Yeah.
they really capitalize on their strengths. Then yeah, it could be very very special. From some of the press that came out after the Witcher 4 release, I think one of my big worries, and I think they sort of addressed it from the after the reveal, was I really don't want the Witcher 4 to be as big or bigger like as Witcher 3 in terms of like open world size and what you do in it, because I felt like Witcher 3 was really stretching the limits. Personally for me, I was like, man, this game feels way too huge. I think they're gonna scale that a little bit back. It won't be as crazy big as The Witcher 3 from what I read after The Witcher 4 was revealed. So I'm hoping they could kind of keep the scope of it more in check, because Witcher 3 very cool, very ambitious, but also very very big and took very long time to beat.
Witcher 4
Witcher
is going to
3
be
broke
their
me.
Witcher
Yeah,
4 is going to be their first game on Unreal 5, right?
I believe so.
Yeah,
Yeah,
not doing Red Engine or
yeah.
whatever.
So
But yeah, Witcher 3, I remember getting to Skellige, and
mhm.
I'm still like this a lot of the times, but not as often. But at the time, I was like completionist, like the completionist. I'm gonna go to every map marker, blah blah blah. And there's like a bunch of dotted question marks like everywhere, like in the
Yeah.
ocean, and it takes forever to swim to them, and you gotta like swim down and get something that you absolutely do not need out of a locked underwater chest. And that's just an example. Like the maps were just huge, filled with. They were pretty. I'm not gonna say they were huge and barren. Like this wasn't like Far Cry 2 levels of
No,
stuff. It
no.
was like but it was just like this could have been packaged a little bit more um tightly.
Yeah.
So good to hear that they're gonna at least kind of swing the pendulum back a little bit for Witcher 4. At least hopefully we can see that. The other big announcement from the Game Awards that I'm not sure anyone was expecting, and I don't know if any leakers or like scuttlebutt beforehand uh, were like leaned into this at all. But that is a follow-up from Software to Elden Ring called Elden Ring Nightreign.
Finally, Elden
Now,
Ring 2. I can't wait.
yeah. So Nightreign is not like Shadow of the Erd Tree. It's not like Scholar of the First Sin, or it's a co-op action survival game, but built off of Elden Ring's like lore and setting and gameplay. So it's like a 3-player 40-minute session
It's like run based.
Helldivers-esh
Yeah. Almost.
like type game. Uh
Well,
which
kind
which
of like the right to like more like a roguelike. I guess it's like a like up to 3 player co-op, and you do like as you start a run, and I guess you get like buffs along the way, like as the further you go, almost like a roguelike type of progression. And when you do it like a new run, it's not like you keep like all your progression from the previous run. I'm sure there's gonna be like some persistent bonuses or things that you unlock along the way. But from what I understand, it seems to be like it's very almost roguelike run based structure.
and like
Um,
basically like you have to like power yourself up through like I don't know if it's wave based or what, but like
A 3-day and night cycle, I believe they said. It's like so you kind of survive over the 3-day and night period along the way. See how far you can get as things get tougher and tougher along the way. So it's almost like a boss rush run based roguelike. It sounds really weird and wild, and I hope it's cool. I don't know if I'm supposed to be. I don't know if I'm looking forward to it yet. I signed up for the closed beta test in more detail, um, but I feel like I really need to like get my hands on it to really form an opinion on it at all because it's so out there.
yeah. So when is the closed beta test on this again? I forgot to write that down.
February 14th through 17th.
Yeah, and
Gotcha.
they started signups like a day ago as of the time of this recording. So yeah, so we'll see. I mean, hopefully I get chosen, or one, or any of us, if you guys sign up and you guys get chosen, because it's just, I think it's really cool that From Software is doing this. I think it's definitely it's out of left field. It's definitely not really in their comfort zone or what people have expected from them. And I always applaud developers when they do something like instead of doing more of the same, they're doing something that's been widely popular and was very very popular even with its like with its expansion. And they decided let's do something with the same game or same IP, but let's do it something really really different enough. We don't know if it's going to work or not, but we hope people are interested. And I think there's such a big risk, and it's very unexpected. I just don't know what to think. I have no idea what to make of it. It's very funny. It's very funny.
And also, it's just like I don't know if it's like project planning or a combination of that and talent and, held on to experience. But the fact that, Elden Ring followed closely by Shadow of the Erdtree, followed closely by Nightreign, like they're it feels almost RGG Studios ish in terms of like
Oh,
Well, I mean,
just the output.
considering like 2023 had Armored Core, so it's like they
Oh
literally
yeah,
had a
Armored
yearly.
Core. Yeah.
They ever since 2022, it's been like yearly releases. And did they release anything in 2021? No, they didn't in 2021. I think it was like a gap between like Sekiro and Elden Ring. Was there something in between? I want to say no, there
I don't think
wasn't.
so. I don't think so. Yeah, hopefully, I hopefully we hear good things out of that beta test. When I'm sure people are going to talk about it, if we get accepted.
Mhm.
And yeah, I'm curious to see more and learn more. I don't know if I'm looking forward to it yet because it's like I said, one of those things I really need to try for myself. To
It's
find
one of
out.
those games that I'll be like, go ahead, then I'll
I,
finish.
but I think one of the more interesting things about the announcement trailer and what people have been saying is there's like bosses from Dark Souls games that make an appearance in that trailer, like the I think like what are the Mounted Storm King, I believe, or whatever, from
I saw
Dark
some
Souls 3.
people. I am not a Dark Souls person, but I saw some people clowning on like news writers like me who are unfamiliar. They're like, a new boss seems to appear with this characteristic or whatever. And of course, social media is like, it's not a new boss, you dummy. Clearly, you only played Elden Ring. It's from Dark Souls. That
I
sort of thing.
mean, that's
Yeah,
even being
it
Oh,
uncharitable.
yeah,
is that
it
the
is.
Nameless King? Yeah.
The
Yeah,
Nameless King.
it is funny how like very very explicitly, like even in Elden Ring, they just reuse like they use everything. They use everything. Like there's a couple of chests in Elden Ring. They're just straight up the Dark Souls 1/3 chest for no reason. Like they have Elden Ring chests, but they also had like a Dark Souls 1 chest. So I was terrified. It's like, this is a mimic, isn't it? This is a mimic, isn't it? It wasn't, but I was worried about it.
Yeah, for sure. So yeah, I mean that's hey, if this game is good, you guys want to co-op?
Hell yeah.
I think this is a game
It's
that I'm more interested in following than
yeah.
playing, but I could see myself like jumping into it, but probably not sinking a ton of time into it. But I'm really curious to see like reception, how it does, how it sells, things like that.
One of the more interesting things that they came out of interviews when people are talking about like, hey, when they're talking to from software developers, like, what was the inspiration for this? And they're like, we saw that a lot of people were like modding the game to have like seamless co-op multiplayer and like just just primarily I think it's the seamless co-op mod for their games. Like they were inspired to like expand more on that, try to do their own thing.
That's really really cool, especially because like I know so many people that deliberately waited to play Shadow of the Erd Tree until after the Seamless Co-op mod was updated because they got so used to playing the game on PC with Seamless Co-op, which makes perfect sense. Like if you just want to play co-op with your buds, with your fucking best friends, you're not going to want to do the song and dance every time you finish a dungeon to have to remake the session when it's like, well, I wouldn't want to stop playing. I want to keep doing it with my friends. Of course, you're going to want to do it seamlessly.
I think this game is definitely, or this concept that they're doing with Nightreign is definitely for that crowd of like, hey, you want like just like start up an easy session or easily start up a session with your buddies, and then just like kind of get like the a compact run of like Elden Ring together. Just like this doesn't have to be a multi-hour affair. It's like just survive this 3 day and night thing and fight a lot of bosses along the way as you get more and more powered up. So it's more of an accelerated progression.
It makes sense. And it's funny because the way that this game is structured sounds very similar to how friends of mine will just spontaneously be like, hey, do you guys want to roll up a new Elden Ring character? And since they've played that game 2, 3, 4 times, like getting through, like they'll basically bum rush right to the first like major boss in Elden Ring within the first hour. And like, it's funny how the way this is structured kind of emulates that.
Yeah. So under that lens, when you think about like what the lessons they learned out of the seamless co-op mod, and but how people were behaving and like doing that, and like what was like just a general community that like flocked to that, they're like, okay, we see what people are going for. We want to try to do something with that concept. This being the result of that is like it's almost kind of like really smart of them to do that.
And I mean, considering like Souls games have always been like in a lot of ways a collaborative effort, not just between like different players, but even the devs and the players themselves. It's like it's really neat to think of the fact that this really does feel like the devs looking at the player base and being like, here's how people like to play our game. Let's try to lean into that. And that's really cool.
I also know that one game that kind of came up by name in a few interviews with Miyazaki was Escape from Tarkov. Which is like a multiplayer like shooter action RPG type game that's got like cooperative components. So
I'm going to make a prediction right now. This game is going to absolutely blow up in the VTubing scene in Japan. It's going to be massive.
Yeah, okay, I can see it. Yeah. I think that this will just be just like a very, very popular game, especially like with content creators in general, right? Like Elden Ring somehow became that, gave me those like a more 100+ hour RPG, and somehow
Souls has always been like really, really popular with like Let's Play stuff and streams, and because it's
And of course, the Game Awards had a handful of other, like it had a ton of announcements of all levels. And a couple that I listed here, like we got a new trailer for Outer Worlds 2. Of course, that was first announced like 3 or 4 years ago. We knew it was like slated for this year, and it's interesting that Obsidian has kind of 2 relatively big RPGs coming out this year. One in the front with Avowed in February, and Outer Worlds 2. I don't think it's dated, but slated for 2025.
I still think it. I love the joke they made where it's like from the studio that brought you all these great sequels, and they were listing off all the sequels to games, and they said, and Fallout 3 too.
That's like Neverwinter Nights 2, Knights of the Old Republic 2, Fallout 3 2, No Vegas.
And I saw
that's
some
a really good
joke.
joke.
Like, did they just announce New Vegas 2? It's like, no, they didn't. But I wonder if that's something they're allowed to do now. So now that they're all under Microsoft's banner, for better or worse. So they got a new trailer, and the game it's a pretty conventional gameplay trailer, but it looks like Outer Worlds was kind of that.
Well, they even say in the trailer like this game took 3 times longer to make than the original.
Yeah, like there's really no good definition. I know some people hate the term, but Outer Worlds was perfectly in that like AA space, and Outer Worlds 2 feels like, okay, we have, the concept is there. I know some people really don't like how like the tone of it, like the tone is kind of an acquired taste, but I appreciate it just because it is a little bit like less self-serious, without being like a parody game. It's kind of threading the needle there. So I think they showed that tone in the trailer, but they're actually had, like Adam said, it's been in the oven. They've had the resources to be able to support it. So hopefully that, comes to fruition when the game releases later in the year.
Brian and I were
Go ahead.
Brian and I were musing before the podcast, the like how well made that trailer was for the Game Awards for Outer Worlds too. Like they kind of it was like genuinely like humorous in a natural manner without it being forced. Like it's like, oh, they really like, they're very self humorous without like forcing it onto people. It's like they get it. Who are, like, all the people involved in making that trailer, like, definitely props to them. That's a really
it definitely shows like a sense of
trailer to make.
self-awareness, not only like what Obsidian has, because before they were acquired by Microsoft, they were kind of like bouncing around, kind of just doing these sequels or other games. And
Well, they crowdfunded the Pillars games.
yeah, and Outer Worlds, the
where they
first
came
one
from.
was like a Private Division kind of collaboration. That was Private Division is now not Private Division's not in a good spot right now. Like, I don't even know what
They got picked up by something, right?
Well, like I know like the Annapurna team they quit, and then they were creating a new group that like took over a lot of the Private Division IPs. I don't know, it's kind of really weird. So, but I remember thinking,
group is like, it's like opposite of Embracer Group. It's like a bunch of people just trying to huddle together, trying to make it work, rather than being gobbled up for trying to make themselves, look good for an acquisition or whatever.
I actually remember thinking when I saw this trailer, though, like you mentioned, like, oh wow, we're getting 2 Obsidian RPGs in 1 year. That seems like it's really rare. Has it even happened before? And the answer is actually, yeah, it actually has happened before. 2010 had both New Vegas and Alpha Protocol. So.
Oh wow, yeah. I forgot they're the same year.
Yeah, because you got Avowed and Outer Worlds too.
We got a new trailer for Crimson Desert. I wrote that down here, but I don't remember what they showed. All those things are really blending together. I apologize. That's my
I think they need to show off more of what you do besides combat in that game. They really have a lot of boss battle footage, but like, what do you do when you're not beating up dudes?
This is very slight inside baseball, but we were invited to like a preview event for this like late last year, and I actually was talking to the PR for a bit, and I was kind of like, can you explain like what this game is? Because it was originally described as an MMO, and then it was like an online offline RPG, and now all like the boilerplate text calls it like an adventure game. Like they're not even calling it an RPG. So we're like, what is this game? And he basically said, now this is just an American PR for a Korean developed game, but like basically said this game has changed a lot since its original announcement like years ago, where it might have been like more traditional MMO starting out. It's not that anymore. So I guess my point is that like this game is definitely like its scope and its style has like molded over time. So we'll see what it ends up as.
So we still don't know.
I think right now they're sticking to adventure game with like boss battles. That's really what they're focusing on, at least in the marketing, is boss battles.
Here, I'm gonna actually Google this. Game Awards 2024. Crimson Desert.
I don't remember the what they showed off in that Game Awards, I'll be honest. I'm
reading our website, rpgsite.net, to learn.
Good website.
Crimson Desert is an open world action adventure game. Yeah, you're right. They don't use the term RPG.
Correct.
Right?
Like, oh, okay. Interesting. Then there's a lot of other surprises at the Game Awards. One of the big ones, the ones they actually ended on, was the announcement of Clover's Studio and a follow-up to Okami, obviously a cult classic that a lot of us have, good memories of, and didn't think could ever had a chance of seeing the light of day due to the status of its original creators. So the fact that Clover's as a new studio exists
and Kamiya
and is able to work on, and Hideki Kamiya is back, and however the IP rights managed to make it so that they are allowed to do this is really fun. Now, Okami really is more of a Zelda-like than an RPG, but we cover Zeldas anyway, so it's basically, we might cover this, we might not. It seems like it's a little bit further out, but obviously it's a really exciting. It seems fun that this is what they ended on, because this is a really exciting announcement, but only for like a medium-sized group of people. Like, this isn't something that that everyone had on their
I wish they
wish
ended on
list.
this, but they did not end on this. They ended on Naughty
They
Dog's new
didn't?
game, the Heretical, the
Oh,
Intergalactic
that's
Prophet
right.
or whatever.
Damn it. This
Yeah.
was second to last.
Yeah,
Yeah,
this
I
is
stand
second to
corrected.
last. Yeah.
I will say though, genuinely, I don't know the best way of putting this. I think I might have some slight more respect for Jeff Keighley now that he basically got almost teared up, like introducing Okami 2. It's like that says a lot about about him as a person. It's like okay, that's something.
Yeah. This is such a really, really cool announcement. Just seeing, hey, like this. It wasn't that long ago. Maybe 2 to 3 years ago, we heard Kamiya leaving Platinum Games, and then seeing it's like, what the hell's Kamiya gonna do now? You've seen him like do like interviews here and there ever since he left.
Well, he had like
Man,
at
it
least
is-
a 1 year no compete, so you can do anything.
It is so genuinely depressing that like at this point I have no faith whatsoever for Platinum Games. All the people I cared about, they're left.
Yeah,
Like-
it seems like there's a big like developer, a lot of developers leaving Platinum
Yeah.
Games recently.
I will say though, I'm glad that Abebe Tanari has landed on his feet because he was the director of Bayonetta Origins, which, as I discovered at the end of 2023, that is the best Platinum game. I've played World of Demons and Anarchy Reigns. I'm an expert. Trust me on this. It's the best Platinum game.
Where did the Origins record go again? I remember seeing that.
Housemark,
that's right.
which Housemark's the one that
Returnal.
did Returnal. Yeah,
Returnal,
so
right.
yeah, I'm really excited to see what he's working on there because
That's
Returnal
a
was
fascinating move. That's a
Yeah.
fascinating just kind of where you're going.
That's
where you go next.
Yeah, I think it can work. I'm excited for him. I'm happy
Housemark
that
they're awesome developers, So
Yeah.
good on them.
Man, thinking about it, like Returnal came out in like early 2021, so we're not that far away from them at least showing off their next game.
Yeah, I really wonder what they're working on after all this time. Returnal was such a I don't know, like it was one of those games that was like difficult to like kind of get to the wider market ever because it was a PS5 exclusive, especially early in PS5's lifespan. But it seems to like be doing well on PC when they.
Yeah, I mean, it seems like Sony was happy enough with it. Otherwise, like, yeah,
So
because they bought Housemark after, right?
Speaking
believe so.
of
I forgot those
Capcom
after they were-
games, sorry,
Go for it.
I was just
yeah, go for it.
So speaking of Capcom games that aren't quite in our wheelhouse, they also did announce a new Onimusha.
Right, and we don't know yet because because there's behind the scenes.
It could be a
rumors that
Souls type game, like Souls type thing.
Yeah, our boss Alex Donaldson was like, we should cover this, and we actually decided let's hold off because Onimusha is more classically like action game. And we don't have enough information to go on. This could have RPG elements. It could be more Souls-ish. We might cover it, but for now, all we have is the, kind of a teaser trailer.
It's exciting though because
it's cool.
It's a really fascinating series that like it kind of reinvents itself. It's a little bit messy in the development side of things, but it kind of always reinvents itself. Where the first game was like a Resident Evil clone, but set in feudal Japan. Then the second one was like by an entirely new development team that had like a more like bond system with like different party companions. So it was a different. It wasn't really a Resident Evil clone at all. It had like a party aspect to it with different characters. 3 was the wild one because they had the alternate. What was that Hollywood actor in Onimusha 3? I forgot his name. But that had like a whole like isekai aspect of like you and that other French actor switching between worlds, and then 4 was like the most RPG-esque of them, Dawn of Dreams, where you had like a full like a party, like more traditional RPG party, different playable characters, and like a whole like stat building system.
Wait, which one was this?
Dawn of Dreams. Onimusha Dawn of Dreams.
I didn't know this existed.
Yep, it was a cool.
I remember 1,
game.
2, and 3, and Tactics.
Oh yeah, Tactics. I remember.
But I forgot about that.
Yeah, Dawn of Dreams is really cool though. So definitely one of the most RPG out of them, but I wouldn't call it a full-fledged. But we'll see though. I mean, this Onimusha, it might be a Souls-like. Who knows? But once I saw the cinematic of like that orb soul spirit getting sucked into the sword, I'm like, oh, it's Onimusha because that's a big defining aspect of that series is like using. It's almost like Ninja Gaiden-esque in the sense of like you can use the things that are dropped from enemies either as currency, or you can suck them up and power up like moves instead of like storing them as currency. So it's very very cool to see that like they decided to resurrect that series. I think it's a shame that they didn't decide to re-release any of the other older Onimusha games except for the first one, because they remastered Onimusha a few years back, and I think they released it on Steam. I forgot they released it on any other platforms, and obviously that one was complicated because they had to redo the whole OST because the original composer of Onimusha on PS2 got into a lot of legal trouble for basically having his songs ghostwritten and taking credit for that. So that was a whole debacle way back when. So yeah, it's a saga. It's a saga. And yeah, we'll see. Other things that one other thing that I put that in this weird category of yet to determine if RPGs are under our scope is RGG Studio had a big presence in the last few weeks, both of the Game Awards and follow up since, because they announced that the studio is working on Virtual Fighter 5 Revo, which is a Steam release of the Virtual Fighter 5 Ultimate Showdown that came out on PS4. This time it'll have rollback netcode, and they had a open beta test for it for a few days, and that was fantastic. I'm very very happy to see that coming in very soon. And playing with my friends because Virtual Fighter 5 is a fun time, especially when you have a workable netcode. They announced the new Virtual Fighter, that has been making a big splash ever since they first showed it off in the Game Awards. It had its own very small like presence and like a Virtual Fighter Direct after it, and then people got really talking about it because there's some snippets of footage, not direct gameplay footage, like in game but in engine footage at the NVIDIA CES conference, which had a very
it was actual in-game footage. It was just like 5 seconds of it.
yeah. They say it's like in-engine footage, but not direct gameplay footage. So they specified that in the text for it. Um, but it looked very fluid, like in terms of like the actual fighting game mechanics, and people are hoping. We hope this is exactly how it looks when you're playing it in game, because it looks so fluid and natural. It's like a kung fu movie, being played out in front of you, and it's basically taking a very different direction than what Street Fighter and Tekken have been doing, where they become like more extravagant and anime-esque in the sense, like you see, like especially Tekken. It's very flashy now and kind of been straying farther away from its like almost down to earth martial arts. But for this one, it looks like a straight up kung fu movie. It looks really cool. So both of those under RGG Studio. We know that the Pirate Yakuza in Hawaii is coming soon, next month, but they're also working on a brand new project called Project Century. We don't know anything if this is RPG yet or not, but it's like it's not in modern times. It's like maybe in the 1940s, 1950s esque era. Um, and it looks like it almost looks like a beat 'em up brawler like the Yakuza series, but we don't know exactly where this falls in line if it is under a scope. But it looks fucking rad, and it looks very brutal and violent and crazy. So that was like one of the most exciting reveals out of the Game Awards. Was RGG Studio is an incredible fucking studio. Their project management and timeline and the cadence of like their release schedules is out of this world. I don't know how they're juggling all these projects internally. They have such a well-oiled pipeline. It's just like it's a marvel to see. It's like, wow, these people have
And
figured it out.
we're recording this a few days after their direct, and some of the stuff they showed for Pirate Yakuza. Like, I think we kind of joked about this, but like, what if the pirate like systems in Pirate Yakuza are like more fully fleshed out than
Oh,
like
I
Assassin's
was
Creed
never.
Black Flag or what is that, Skull and Bones?
Yeah,
And it looks like it is like they
I
just
was
come up
never
with this.
joking about it. I was never joking about it.
Yeah.
I was expecting it.
Yeah, but yeah, I mean, we're kind of skipping ahead here, but yeah, they had a Like a Dragon Direct that showed off a lot more of what like all the features in the Pirate Yakuza in Hawaii, and that looks crazy. It looks like a very, very fully well realized, like fleshed out, like pirate customization system, like pirate ships, boarding other pirate ships and fighting, taking the fight onto other enemy decks, recruiting people to your pirate squad, decking out like your cannons. So it's like they're not beholden by reality too. So it's not like just standard cannonballs. You have like flamethrower cannons, like energy laser cannons that you can fit on, and it's like, okay, sure, why not? Um, yeah, that was, and I think one of the more significant things that came out of that Like a Dragon Direct, that they specifically mentioned at the end, and you can tell it's like, here's our direct way of letting you know that like RGG Studios listening is, hey, we're gonna add New Game Plus to Pirate Rock Yakuza in Hawaii for free as a post launch update. Directly addressing that whole debacle last year with Infinite Wealth, where they made Infinite Wealth's NG New Game Plus thing a paid feature. That game.
To be fair, it's kind of hard for them to ignore it when the main VA for one of your two main characters directly shit posts at them about it on Twitter.
Who did that? I didn't know that.
Yang Ye made a video about that.
About that. Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Obviously pissed off.
I had compartmentalized that into some other corner of my brain. I forgot he voiced
Yeah.
you.
Yeah. I mean, obviously that pissed off Sega, but I mean, it's like, was it unprofessional to do? Yes. Was he wrong to say it? No.
So I mean, that's cool of them. Hey, but we should right this ship. But we shouldn't be. But hopefully, that's just setting the standard going forward on that. Unfortunately, Infinite Wealth isn't in the situation that it's in, but very next title, they're like, we should make good and not do this. So, for anyone else who's interested, go watch out Like a Dragon Direct. There's so many things they reveal about Pirate Yakuza in Hawaii there. It's like, wow, this is gonna be fucking awesome. It looks like a good time. Who'd have thought?
And I think that kind of covers it for the Game Awards. Obviously, it might not have been absolutely everything, but at least hit the key highlights, and other projects that they touched on will obviously cover as they get updates throughout the year. So at the end of the year, we got a few updates for a bunch of Falcom titles. So one of these, this first one, we actually might have already touched on a little bit. That is, of course, one of our most anticipated games of this year, the full-fledged remake of Trails in the Sky. Trails in the Sky, now known as Trails in the Sky First Chapter under its English publisher, Gung Ho Entertainment. I don't know if we knew this until this announcement was made.
We did not know before.
We didn't know.
Gotcha.
We knew because I literally asked at TGS that they were, like, back in September, they were engaged in like negotiations with multiple companies, including at one point Xseed, but they ended up with Gung Ho. So
now I wonder how many people listening right now. I mean, they know now, but how many people listening right now at the time didn't know, like, who the heck is Gung Ho? Because they don't have a ton of like stuff to their name. Their biggest games are like Puzzles and Dragons, and also like Ninjala and Let It Die. So some of these sort of like more online mobile type games. In our space, Gung Ho is probably most well known for the Grandia remasters. So that's Grandia 1, Grandia 2. Grandia 2 came out
and they're working on the Lunar remasters too right now.
Yeah,
right?
but that's both game arts, Grandia and Lunar. So in our sphere, the RPG sphere, that's what people will probably know them for. Like, it's hard to believe. I think the Grandia 2 PC port came out like 8, 9, 10 years ago. Like, originally, it's been updated a ton, and it's still only, I think it's in an okay spot now. But kind of an addendum to this announcement, I don't know if we're bearing the lead here, is that the Grandia PC ports aren't very good. They're okay, maybe. And I know people were wondering, did we say that Legend of Heroes is coming to PC?
Yeah.
Not yet.
Well, I guess the good, maybe bad news, we don't know yet, is that at least we know that Gung Ho's not working on the PC version for Trails of the Sky First Chapter.
Yeah, so if we buried the lead, this game was originally announced just for Switch. It came up in like a Switch Nintendo Direct, and that's all we knew at the time. But then they confirmed it's coming to PlayStation 5, 4, and PC also, which is a pretty typical slate of platforms for Falcom games. But yeah, the PC port, as James mentioned, is internal. It is from Falcom, which probably better than Gung Ho based on pedigree or history. but I'm gonna probably not gonna be as nice as Durante's PC ports. I think that's not a stretch to say.
Yeah, I think the safest thing we can say here is that considering Durante is literally the number one, well, PH3. If a game's getting a PC port, you want PH3 to do it. It will be the best PC port of that year. That is not a question. That is a certainty. So
yeah. So that's why people are very kind of I don't know about like who knows what the state of the PC version.
It could be
like.
good. It could be good, but considering like what Mikhail reported with Isof and Felghana on Switch and PS5, the fact that it's based off of the PSP version tells me that maybe, I don't know. I'm hoping it's good. I'm going to assume it's going to be good. I'm excited for it though. For me in particular, I'm just glad it's day and date on PC.
Yeah, there's gonna be launching worldwide in fall 2025 as well. It's gonna be the simultaneous release worldwide. So and there's gonna be a big undertaking because there's gonna be there's gonna be big be Falcom's big moment here, and like they're probably gonna go for the Western release.
Yeah.
But
can I start with this one?
Big game.
Finally, thank God.
I mean,
no, you have to start with the first
Dragon
one, which
Slayer.
is the third one. Yeah. The Gagharv.
I'm just glad for me specifically. The fact this is PC day and date means, oh, thank fucking God, I don't have to play a Falcom game in Japanese on fucking PlayStation ever again.
Yeah, it's gonna also be really interesting to see like what the English localization for this is gonna be like. Because obviously
the Steam store page does mention localization, like updates and tweaks.
Yeah,
which the Xseed version has already been updated a bit.
Yeah, and we did get some information from like a person that used to work at Xseed, no longer works at Xseed. He's a bit of a character, but he would know. Thomas Lipschultz straight up confirmed that Falcom owns the Xseed scripts for Trails in the Sky, so it makes sense that I would assume, and considering, and if I was in Gung Ho's shoes, I would definitely do this. It's just going to be like an extra editing pass to the existing translation, which is fine. That's all you need to do. That's all you need to do.
Yeah, because people are thrown off. Like in the press release itself, they say it's a brand new localization. So we'll see.
Well, they said brand new localization.
So it might be for the other languages.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that's for the other languages. Yeah.
Okay, the press release does say brand new English, German, and French localizations, and it's probably not It's probably not actually brand new English. Like we know that it's just tweaked English, but brand new German and French.
Since there's more voice acting, they might have done like a pretty heavy editing pass to accommodate like English voice acting, because the original release was only like the barks that were English dubbed. So.
I'm sure when this game comes out, like within the first week, people are gonna have all sorts of screenshot and video comparisons of the localization compared to the old and the new. So those answers are gonna get addressed pretty fast because there's a pretty loyal community, and they definitely want to see what the status of this game is gonna be like when it releases. But they had a really great announcement trailer for this. New trailer for this game. They showed off, hey, there's what more the game looks like. It does it does borrow from that Trails into Daybreak battle system with the hybrid real-time action RPG and turn-based RPG transitions.
You're also seeing a bunch of the improved like presentation that I think I said this on a previous podcast. No, I definitely said this on a previous podcast. People are going to see this game and its presentation after like all the massive improvements that Falcom's made with like their cutscenes and animations, with specifically like East 10 and especially like Kai, and people are going to be probably like fooled into thinking that Falcom is a much bigger company than they actually are.
Yeah. I really love the sneak peeks of like the cutscene choreography here, especially when like Estelle drop kicks Joshua when he's on the bed. It's really just such a great characterization of Estelle, because she's a very energetic exciting girl, and very very much very active in her body language and the way that she expresses herself, and that it makes great use of the improvements that other cutscene choreography over there.
I love how for presumably just that one scene, they lovingly detailed the souls of her shoes because it's like, yeah, that's one of Estelle's whole things is that she loves shoes. So you gotta put the detail there.
Yeah, I can't wait to see the side quest of her having to like test out these Stregas and everything. Oh man, there's so many moments like in first chapter and second chapter. Whenever they did announce a remake for that, like I'm just thinking like, how the fuck are they gonna depict this scene? I'm very interested in seeing what they're gonna do. These games are cool. These games are cool.
When the announcement was made that it was gung ho, one thing that people were admittedly, concerned about was, is this getting a physical release? Because gung ho is a tiny company, and it is getting a physical release in the West. It might be like Amazon exclusive in the US. It is,
and the limited edition is unfortunately fucking limited road.
Yeah.
It's okay. I'll just import the Japanese limited edition. Considering it's day and date, it's probably going to have English on it.
Yeah, probably.
But yeah, like we said earlier, this was one of our most anticipated games. It was voted very high by our readers as well. I think it's kind of in a really good spot where it's obviously fans of the series want to play this, but also people who have just been hearing about the series and maybe been too hesitant to like, where do I start? I could play the original game, but maybe it's a little too old. Like, no, this is your game.
Yeah. So, what I've been saying is that this is the moment. If this isn't what causes the series to really blow up in the West, nothing will. Nothing will, because it's on everything. Well, it's on every viable platform for like these style of RPGs. Sorry, Xbox.
I remember when Nisa released that trailer for Trails into Azure. It's like it's available on all platforms, and then it's like every platform except the Xbox logo.
Yeah,
they called it available on all platforms.
Yeah,
all platforms that matter.
Well, don't worry, guys. It's on PC, and as Microsoft has told us, your PC is an Xbox.
That's true. They did have that holiday marketing campaign of like, this is an Xbox.
But all jokes aside, like it literally has everything. It has an English dub. It's day and date release. It's on every viable platform for RPGs like this. If this isn't it, I mean I don't know what else to say. It literally has everything going for it to be a breakout success, and I'm sure it will be.
Hopefully it does well. Yeah, I'm rooting for it. It's because I love the crossbell. Not crossbell. Liberal game.
The next announcement, this one is a little bit of a different type of announcement, and that is the announcement of East 10 Proud Nordics. So this is kind of an expanded re-release for East 10 Nordics, which released in Japan in 2023, but didn't release in the West until last October. So Proud Nordics is slated for release in 2025 in Japan. Obviously, no details of localization at all for this one. And the announcement here is that it has. Oh darn it! I was hoping you had the press release in the RPG news post.
We don't actually have too many details yet. They haven't even said the platforms, and they said there's a reason why, which is code for it's going to be a Switch 2 launch title probably. But it's very, very similar to what they did with Ys 8 in Japan when it got ported to PlayStation 4. Where fun fact, if you've played Ys 8 on PlayStation 4, you should look up the version differences between the Japanese Vita version and the Japanese PS4 version, and realize that, man, that's like a third of the game that just wasn't in the Vita version.
Hey, you like those Donna's other forms? Well, that wasn't in the original.
Did you like Donna having a dungeon? That wasn't in the original. Yeah. Did you like there being a post-game dungeon? That wasn't in the... Well, there was a post-game dungeon, but not the big one. Did you like the night raid sections? Wasn't in the original. Did you like...
You didn't like the night raid section.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't like
They completely overhauled the fishing mini game.
Yeah, so
they announced that there's going to be like a new island. There's a new mana user, which is interesting, and new story, but we don't really have any details.
And there's very, very, very unlikely to be a DLC expansion or upgrade thing. There's probably gonna be a new thing that you have to buy, as a separate game. There might be save data transfer. We don't know yet. But
I assume it's just gonna be totally separate.
That's what I'm thinking too.
Now,
So
other people have made this
unfortunately,
conclusion. You go ahead.
for it. It's just very unfortunate for Nice America because of the timing of this announcement. Because East 10 just barely came out for like what 2 months at that point before this got announced. So for me, I'm just like, I'm not gonna pick up East 10. I'm not
Right?
gonna
Why not?
dump
Or why would you?
$60 into that. I mean, yeah, I have no reason to. I'm just gonna wait for Proud Nordics.
It
Because yeah,
yeah,
it took me the most complete version.
it really sucks, especially that this happened so close to the Western release, because this
Yeah.
is a larger gap between the Vita version of Ys 8 and the PS4 version of Ys 8. But obviously, because at least until Trails in the Sky First Chapter, which is going to be the first fucking worldwide release in like forever, that just hasn't been a thing. So anyone that bought East 10 at the Western launch 6 weeks before this was announced, all the people I know that played East 10 or bought it at launch, or maybe even bought it but hadn't gotten to it yet, are pissed. And I can't blame them for it, even if it, yeah.
Now, other people have made this conclusion too, and I'm sure, and this isn't probably super insightful, but it seems like what may have happened, or just this is speculative, is that Falcom wanted to have a title on Switch 2, and East 10 was a recent completed entry. It's relatively standalone. You don't have to play other East games, so it would be a good title to have on the platform as sort of like, hey, here's a Falcom game on Switch 2 as a launch title or close to launch title. But we're going to take the opportunity to maybe make some adjustments and add to it and tweak it and make more content to make it like appealing to maybe double dippers or whatever. And then at that point, it's like, well, why not just release it on everything, including Switch 2? And thus you have a brand new version. So
It should have happened to East 9.
Yeah.
East 9 never really got a follow-up, did it?
Nope.
The thing is that at the time, they were teasing the idea of they considered doing something like this with PS5. Like back in the day when they were asked about like if they were going to support PS5, that like Kondo even said that they were thinking about doing a native PS5 version of East 9 themselves to even add in like additional content, like a new playable character. He deliberately said that. It never happened, but that was a consideration. Eventually they were just like, yeah, we'll just make it 4K on PS5 if you play it like backwards compatible on PS4, like the PS4 version. And that's what they did. But it's a shame because it's like,
NIS America put out a accolades trailer for East 10 like last week. I was told the comments were interesting. I did not look at the comments.
It's what you expect. It's what you expect.
Not NIS America's fault. They were as blindsided as anyone.
Exactly. Yeah.
I kind of feel bad for them because a lot of these companies, obviously sales at launch are important, but it's like they have their catalogs. Yeah, but now like I'm sure their expectations for what East 10 would maybe sell in sales throughout the next year or two, like what they could possibly predict in terms of revenue or sales of that game going forward, are just going to crater. Like,
it's kind of
who's gonna buy it?
My friends who bought the Western version of East 10 and beat it, they're like, we're not gonna go back and go deal with the early game ship again. I'm not gonna get it.
Yeah, I'm just gonna say it. I hope that NIS America is able to convince Falcom to let there be like an upgrade path to Proud Nordics, because it's like, if I was them, that's like the only fucking chance they got to like get like, if as soon as possible get some sort of confirmation. At least you can pay for an upgrade. Like, come on. Yeah.
Yeah, so we'll see. I mean, nothing's really been announced about what they're gonna do yet. Like, obviously, it's so early on. They just kind of revealed the title and some of the new things, but nothing in terms of like how they're gonna sell it or if there's any upgrade options or anything. There's all speculation on our part based on historic knowledge.
It is funny though that like right after this announcement, there was a bunch of people making jokes where it's like Falcom pulls an Atlas.
Yeah, I like the Simpsons version of the meme.
You never know, though.
The Simpsons meme when Marge is yelling at Lisa instead of Bart. He gets confused, basically, for Falcom and Atlas.
Yeah.
Sorry, force of habit.
Yeah.
So yeah, but who knows? We don't know if there's gonna be an upgraded version of Metaphor down the road or not. Anything can happen.
I'm very excited to see Metaphor's new girl.
Yeah, they're gonna do it for isn't the new mana user a girl in this one in Proud
I don't think they
Nordics?
said, but it probably
Oh,
is.
okay.
There's a 95% chance it is.
They always. I'm trying to think of how. Yeah, probably.
And then the last Falcom related announcement that we have, I'm gonna need some help from
Real Falcom heads.
the experts here. This is a side game, a spin-off game, being localized in 2025. This is Ys versus Trails in the Sky Alternative Saga, being published in English by Refint Games. James, explain to me what this is. Ys versus Trails in the Sky.
For what
So
platforms
this-
before you get into it? For what
for
platforms?
PlayStation 5,
everything.
yeah,
Not
except
Xbox.
Xbox.
All the platforms.
No. Well, no. Look.
Go ahead.
We can say for every platform because again, a PC is an Xbox, so for all platforms. But anyways, Ys versus Trails in the Sky Alternative Saga was a PSP game, which was a kind of almost like Power Stone at home type thing.
Yeah, okay. I'll take it. Yeah.
But yeah, it's a party game. This announcement in and of itself isn't a big deal, but what it represents is, because this is the Geofront translation. Like, it's based on the Geofront translation, and years ago, I was invited to potentially help with a project for, I'm not going to say which game specifically, because I don't know if it's still like people are working on it behind the scenes. But for a while now, in that sphere of Geofront and related projects, people had been thinking, what if we could find a smaller publisher to reach out to then try and negotiate with Falcom to do a re-release of these games on PC and consoles. And people thought maybe this could happen. Who knows? And now we have the answer. Yeah, it can happen. This is the Geofront translation. They reached out to a publisher. They reached out to Falcom, and now it's coming out on everything. So that makes me think, if all of the scripts that Xseed worked on for Falcom games are owned by Falcom, which publisher do we need to convince to port Brandish to the Dark Revenant to PC?
It's a good game.
Yeah, so that is a really interesting prospect of this, because it's kind of
it opens the floodgates.
Yeah, it opens the floodgates. Yeah.
Yeah, because it proves that it doesn't have to be a publisher that's already established with Falcom. As long as you can convince them to reach out and offer to do this, it sounds like Falcom's just like, this will make us some money. Sure, why not?
I wonder if this if this eventually would have happened if NIS America didn't do the cross-bell games, for example. If this is like the second option, if NIS America didn't do the cross-bell games themselves.
It is just kind of interesting and cool that there are like 4 Falcom games coming out in English this year with 4 different English publishers. East Memoire came out Xseed.
At least 4, maybe 5.
Well, 4 this year. So the ones I had in mind were East Memoire is Xseed, Daybreak 2 is NIS America, this game is Refint, and then Trails in the Sky is Gung Ho. So
yeah.
Not to mention the Japanese releases of fucking like Proud Nordics. It's like, oh.
So for people who don't know about this game, this is like James said, it's kind of Power Stone, and it is like a fighting game, but it's definitely, it's not balanced. If you're thinking like, oh, it's gonna be a very balanced fighting game, no, this game's completely fucking broken. There's definitely clear winners and clear losers, and the East cast is, since it came out around
PSP era
after E7 and Trails in the Sky, it has the E7 cast in it, not any other characters in the East series. So if you're a big fan of the E7 characters, well, there you go. You can have fun with them again.
At least that way you get Dogi, I suppose.
That's right. And it's a really it's a cool experimental type of game, but like don't expect like any super balanced fighting game beneath it, because it's definitely not.
I guess I didn't realize Chester is also playable from Felghana.
I don't know if
it's also PSP, sort of.
From people who attended the panel at the event this was announced in, apparently they said rollback in it. I don't know if that's 100% confirmed or not. If it has
it has rollback
code for okay.
It's actually kind of
Yeah, it's
interesting.
really
I'm looking
cool.
at the roster here, and there's a bunch of like support characters, and it's like, oh yeah, I recognize Yurio and Chris from Gagharv Trilogy, and Michael Lap de Heaven, or Michael de Lap Heaven, also from Gagharv.
Yeah,
I recognize these characters now.
but for example, like Mishera, for example, is like the big top tier character of this game, like playable character, and like some characters that are assists that are really good. It's like Cassius, for example, like makes your character invincible for a set amount of time, which is very good to have in a competitive game.
We have
Um,
we have Perrin from Guruman, and we have Pakal and Pipero from Zwei.
but what and it does to date this game, like the secret cameo unlockable character in this game was Lloyd from the Crossbell games.
Because it released before Trails from Zero did, so it was like
Yeah.
a preview.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's really funny.
It
But
would
yeah.
it would be like if that like East versus Sen no Kyoseki was actually real and did happen, because there was like a tease.
Yeah,
There was a tease for it in Tokyo Xanadu Express. I assumed they had thought about making it, and then they just didn't. They just didn't, because there was like a poster for Cold Steel 3 in that same game. So yeah.
all right, time for the big conspiracy theory. Arc System Works has been kind of hush on their next mainline game on what they're working on ever since they released Guilty Gear Strive in 2020. So we don't know exactly what they're working on next, but maybe they're collaborating with Falcom for their next licensed fighting game.
How do I say that Arc System Works is too big for Falcom without being mean?
I know. But it'd be very interesting to see like what quote unquote real Falcom fighting game would look like. Like Falcom versus Capcom. Like what the fuck does that look like?
I would
They have
love
the
to
roster
see
size for it.
one thing I would love to see, because of certain other events with Falcom, is maybe we can finally get a Falcom rhythm game now. Maybe. Oh god, I am feeling possibly hopeful for the state of Falcom JDK in the future now. That's all I'm gonna say.
Kondo had Gakuen Idolmaster in his top 5 in the Famitsu poll, Man, who knows how influenced he was by Gakuen Idolmaster, Who can really say?
Yep.
Wild times here over, and if you're a fan of Falcom, you are pretty much in heaven right now. I have to imagine.
2025, the year of Falcom, and that's only partially a joke.
Yeah, it's crazy. It's crazy.
Hey, in our year-end poll, Falcom had a good showing. Daybreak and East 10 showed up in the 2024 list, and then both Trails games in the Sky and Daybreak 2 showed up in the most anticipated list. So,
yep,
that's 4 games in those 2 lists.
Okay, since we're here, I have to mention, and I feel a little bit scummy for mentioning this, but it is in my head. I have knowledge of this, but this is not where the Falcom news ends. Falcom is apparently having a collab event with a game called Echolocalypse. I forgot it's like Apocalypse but Echo at the front. With Trails into Azure, I think, and this type of game, it's a gacha game, but it's like a lewd gacha game. And the silhouettes that they had for the characters showing is Rixia, Ellie, and Ren as the silhouettes. That's all I'm saying. That they said they announced the announcement teaser for it with those silhouettes, and unfortunately, I have knowledge of what kind of game this is, and I'm like, why? You're a Falcom, maybe. You're a Falcom.
Yeah. At least fucking Ren's no longer underage.
I mean, is this Crossbell Ren?
It trails into Azure Ren. So
no. No. Oh god.
I'm sorry, but I have not. I saw the news and I got knowledge of it. I'm like, well, we're at this. We're here, so I have to share the info. There you go.
Well, thanks for making sure our coverage is comprehensive.
Yeah, I got to.
A couple other things that we have here in like the announcements section that I don't know if these were attached to any sort of event or direct. I don't think so. So one of them is the studio that did Cris Tales, that was their debut project back in like 2018, 2019, Dreams Uncorporated. they've announced that their next project is Prisma, which has basically a more Persona-esque kind of like if Cris Tales was kind of like Chrono Trigger cross Paper Mario sort of thing. This one seems like it takes some inspirations from Persona 5 in terms of its 3D perspective and its UI and just kind of like its art style in general. I'm trying to read the kind of the story synopsis here to give us
you
like
have
some
like a character,
non-mechanical.
and you have like your main character whose name I forget. I don't have it in front of me here. Is like teaming up with like alternate versions of himself.
Yeah, it's interesting. Like the concept seems interesting. I really need to see how it plays before
Mhm. I
like,
played Cris Tales. It was okay.
Yeah.
Like for a debut game from a studio in Colombia, kind of making they're inspired by Japanese RPGs and even Western cartoons, kind of making something like I think it's very admirable, and I think it does some nice things, but it definitely is there's definitely some issues and flaws and things that could be better.
Yeah.
So this is their second project. We'll see what happens.
Yeah, I will say, if nothing else, the key art for this game is very, very good. So,
And no releases or anything. This is just kind of like a fully announcing the project. And then this one, I don't know what to think about. Recettear and Items Shop's Tale is getting an HD edition.
Recettear.
Recettear?
Capitalism Ho?
Yeah.
Here.
Yep, that's where a capitalism home meme started, and it definitely is like one of the earliest like games that established in the scene on PC.
Yeah, it was like, if not the first, like one of the first 5 like Japanese indie games on Steam. So it's like, if you've been on Steam long enough, check your Steam library. Recettear is there.
Probably. It's I don't know. It's kind of interesting. Like I don't know what HD edition entails. They haven't really detailed exactly like aside from it, like having a widescreen support. Like we know exactly what other upgrades it'll have. But it's cool to see it back. I mean, this is an oldie but a goodie. It's like half. Well, I would say it's like 70% managing a shop and setting items for the items that you're selling in the shop, and but a good chunk of it is like diving into dungeons and like getting the loot to sell to the shop.
Oh yeah, and Andrew Dice did confirm on Blue Sky that Kurt Folger is like working on this, which it's got to feel like fucking insane for him, right? Because like 15 years since that original game released on Steam, it's like it's been a hell of a like ups and downs for him especially, and it's like I'm glad that he's in a lot better space now. He's recovered from the whole stuff that happened with Turtles in the Sky second chapter. He seems to be in a much better space. I'm happy for him, and it seems like it's got to feel like really interesting to return to where it all began. Like again, 15 years later.
Yeah, this is it's weird to say 15 years later from Recettear. God, it's been a long time.
We have a review on our site.
Yeah, it came out in September of 2010. So yes, it will have been 15 years.
Holy. But yeah, interested to see more footage and of this in action.
Yeah, literally the announcement is a tweet and like 3 images.
Yeah, it's a neat little game, and really showed like the potential of like, hey, these smaller games might be the future, and sure enough, here we are 15 years later. Big boom.
So in terms of other like trailers for upcoming games, the big one that I highlighted here for the next section of news is a late announcement from last year. Back in October, we had the other most anticipated game for 2025 from our site staff, Xenoblade Chronicles X Definitive Edition. It was kind of a surprise announcement back in October. Nintendo in early January, about a week ago, released, or actually just a couple of days ago at the time of recording, basically a new trailer, a story trailer called The Year is 2054 for the upcoming Xenoblade Chronicles Cross Definitive Edition. Now, I'm someone who has not played the original, so when I see this is all new to me, and I can't see between the lines, so to speak. So I don't know those who have played Xenoblade Chronicles Cross what they see, if there's anything like to glean from this trailer as a
So So the first part of this trailer is like there's a lot of existing stuff in there, just showing like the premise and some areas that have already existed, although it's like they look new now, like they look different. Some of the characters look different, a little bit and whatnot. But there's little bits and pieces interspersed that are new in like the first part of this trailer. The one that's like most prevalent and obvious is there's a new Skell and a new pilot. They're wearing like it looks like a big round impy mask type thing. It's a woman, a female pilot, and she pilots a Skell. I think the voiceover says something like, "I'm the best pilot there is," or something like that. And she pilots a Skell that like actually like transforms into like a ship, and that's all.
There's
New.
something that isn't in the game. There's no skill in the game that like can transfer to like a jet. It's usually like a land vehicle.
Yeah, and then actually Nintendo tweeted about this later that Skell's name is Hresfelg and wields a samurai sword, which feels like a mixed theming to me. Like, okay, you can't wield a samurai sword and be named Hresfelg, or you can't be Hresfelg and wield a samurai sword. You're mixing your etymologies here. Anyways, that's so. If for people who aren't aware, unlike other Xenoblade games, you don't have like this is your set party. There's more like there's like I don't remember exactly, like 15 to 20 characters that can join you and that can be in your party. The main characters are like Elma and Lynn, really, and Lao, sort of. And we'll get to Lao later. That's his name, right? Lao?
Yes.
Okay. But then there's like a bunch of other characters that have like side quests, side stories, and the way this game is structured that can join you. And there's like 15 to 20 of them. So it seems like this new pilot is basically they're taking the opportunity like, hey, we can add a couple new characters. Why not? So that's one. And there's also another character that they showed in this part of the trailer that it's either I don't recognize them because I forgot or because they're new.
Like the new woman that has like a glowy face, right?
Well, there's the woman with like the long like furry elf ears. Like I didn't recognize her. There's Celica in the original game. I remember Celica, but like this girl doesn't look quite like Celica. I think it's the same race but a different character. I don't recognize them. So, and I don't think they've elaborated on who that is. So my point is yeah, there were bits and pieces of new characters in the first part, and I actually didn't realize when I first watched the trailer. There's a post title card scene at the end of the trailer that's all new, and it shows Lao. And for those of you who played the game, you know that this is significant. And he's talking to somebody. They say some mysterious things I don't remember, and they're showing a new location. And new story.
It's like a brand new zone or a brand new map, which is very exciting. That's all new. But I like the very big like narrative reveals were like at the post credit scenes of this trailer. Basically, it was like, oh shit, like wow, there might be substantial additions to this.
Was it you that said that one of the characters he's talking to looks like Albedo?
Yeah, that's me. It does look like Albedo.
What if it's Albedo? Oh my god.
That'd be. But yeah, but in terms of in terms of gameplay, like some of the more significant things, like the brief first footage of battles in Xenoblade X Definitive Edition is like, as you can see, the UI is brand new. It's much more legible and readable. The text is much more readable on the screen, like because in the original it was much more thin, different font. And it was just hard to see if you weren't up close near the screen. It was actually hard to read text if you're playing this on a big TV on a couch. It was actually hard to read text. If you're playing this on the Wii U tablet alone, it was virtually impossible to read if you're just playing on the Wii U tablet.
When I played this, I obviously own a Wii U. Obviously, I own a Wii U copy of this game. When I finally played it, I emulated it. So I was playing it on my desktop, looking at my monitor. And in that case specifically, it was perfect. You could tell that they only ever tested the UI at their workstations. But yeah, looking at this trailer, it's like just from what I'm seeing that I can tell is new. For one thing, there's obviously a couple of new cutscenes that look like they're in the main story that might have been redone, like more focus on that, which is good. That makes sense. There's obviously the new stuff at the end. That like little music track at the end, it's like, okay, is that the new final boss theme for whatever the post-game stuff is? Because every Xenoblade game on Switch has had either DLC or an additional like scenario that's like 20 plus hours long. So I'm really excited for this.
Yeah, and I guess we should mention that like people going into this that have maybe not played this and played the other Xenoblade games, do the side quests in this one.
Yeah,
You definitely want to play the
PSA,
same.
It's a side quest game.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
completely understand why, in the context of the original release, people skip the side quests because, like, there were a lot of good side quests in Xenoblade 1, but there was a lot of garbage.
Oh yeah,
And
Xenoblade 1 is
and-
notorious for having some of the worst side quests in any RPG ever. Like,
yeah. So it's like, so when people went into Cross, they were like, well, I'm just going to mainline it because that's how you get the best experience in one. That's also not how you get the best experience in one. You want to do at least some side quests so you don't fall behind and get stuck at
Makana somewhere.
Yeah, someone like that. Yeah, the side quests are definitely where this game shines. New LA is basically like, what if you took the Colony 9 restoration from Xenoblade 1 and made literally an entire game based around that concept? That is not a joke. That is how the game works. You want to do as many side quests as you can because you can bring different alien races back to New LA, and then there's side quests with those different alien races that you brought back separately, intermingling, interacting. It's really fascinating stuff.
Yeah.
Pizza.
Yes.
Pizza.
The water plant.
But I cannot wait until people get to meet Alvin and the Chipmunks fucking alien ass Columbo.
Oh fuck, man. It's so good.
And that's not me exaggerating.
Yes, it's not. That's how it is. Another big thing that the trailer showed off, aside from the much more legible battle UI, is they have a new overdrive counter guidance, which is sort of similar to. It's basically like a helpful reminder.
In Xenoblade 2, yeah.
Yeah, it's like how it works in Xenoblade 2, but it's much more apparent in your face now. Like you won't get lost in like your whole. There's a whole overdrive system in the battle system.
Yeah, I've been of the opinion that secretly the best Xenoblade battle system is not Xenoblade 3. It's not Xenoblade 2, Torn into Golden Country, though that is close. That is number 2. It's Xenoblade Cross. I think that Overdrive really, really completes the Xenoblade 1 style battle system and makes it a lot more engaging.
It's just hard to like wrap your head around because they don't make it really apparent. Like one of the big things I was thinking about this definitive edition is like will they help make better tutorials for the game? Because this is a game that like. There's a game I had to like read the manual for to understand how to play the game. Like I read the manual from the beginning to end. It's like okay, I kind of get it now.
Okay. So I'm everyone listening to this podcast has not played Xenoblade Cross before. I'm going to give you a very hot tip. You're gonna find a gun that does almost no damage, but it gives you a bunch of tactics points every time you fire it. Equip that. There you go. You're set for the rest of the game. That's how you build up Overdrive.
Yeah, don't think that like that is worthless. Don't sleep on it. It's very good. It's very, very good.
I distinctly remember my experience with the final boss. It's like, okay, we've put you on your skells. Okay, I'm getting right out of my skull because I'm going to just immediately shit all over this guy.
That is the one thing that I hope they really improve because like on foot combat is way more interesting.
It's funny though.
Overpowered than the skull combat. Skull combat is not that great, but it's very funny though. Yeah, it's very funny though. Yeah. It's way more efficient to do on foot combat in the original one. This will be a big thing for people who play the original and won't other people won't understand. They made it so when you get the flight unit, you can jump with the flight unit. You won't automatically fly when you press the jump button.
Thank fucking God.
Oh yeah, I didn't realize
I even like the flight music, but I like the other areas music too. And if I don't want to fly, I want to be able to hear it.
So people have to understand, when you play the game and you get your Skell, it's still really cool. You can go travel around the Skell. You can go transfer to land vehicle. That's cool. You get your flight unit. You're like, cool, I can fly around in this world now. There's this flight unit that's very beautiful. The flight tracker is very beautiful. The big misfire on this is when you have the flight unit on the ground and you just want to jump, you automatically fly instead of like jump. So and whenever you start flight, it immediately overrides the track that's playing into the flight music. Yeah, and it's like it's all over the place.
Everyone that's played Xenoblade Cross and has gotten far enough to actually get flight with their skills has those first fucking 6 notes of that theme burned into their mind.
I even kind of like the flight music, but the fact that it just pops in and out like all the time, in and out,
You
in
just
and
want
out, in and out.
because you just want to get vertical height without flying at all. Without flying, you're just like fuck.
So how do you guys feel about the fact that this one conversation right here is the highest concentration of Xenoblade Cross sickos prior to this game's release?
It's a good thing I'm on this podcast. I'd
Yeah.
rather don't. I don't want to be anywhere else.
We're in
because
good company. We're in good company.
Another a very small minor thing, but like when I watch a trailer and I understand why it has to be this way, but like when they did a field action, like activate a node, it had to switch to another screen to show the map to show that you activated. And like, I get it, I know why, but that's a little thing against it because in the original, in the Wii U version, you had two screens. So there was no need to have a separate screen for the map because on the Wii U tablet screen that shows the node map.
Yeah, so for people who aren't aware, really quick, the world map in this game is basically separated into like hexagons. Right, they're hexagons, and like each map has each little hexagon node has like something on it to do on that node, and you can actually like complete it and check it off. It's almost like checklisty, but also that little node map has just a bunch of like details and information about quests, locations, and everything basically. And it was kind of nice because it was always right in front of you, and now it's a separate screen. So that's what it is.
I get it. I know why, but anyway, this is coming out March 20th. I'm still very excited. Another game got delayed to March 20th that we're gonna get to in a sec. Unfortunately, I know where my allegiances lie on March 20th.
I really hope Koei Tecmo doesn't ever preview thing for that Atelier, because it's like I'm really excited about that new Atelier, but it's like I don't want to choose. I can't choose. They're both the same day.
So man, I'm so excited for this. Is this is a day I've dreamed of ever since they started doing like re-releases on the Switch. Of like, are they gonna do Xenoblade X? Please God! And here we are.
We
2025
in 2 months and a little more than a week, we are going to live in a world where every Xenoblade game's best version is on Switch.
So, and it'll be playable on Switch too.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah.
Now, is there anything left, RPG or otherwise, locked to Wii U? Is it like the Wind Waker HD and that's it?
Like, I'm trying to think, not RPG, but Nintendo Land. But that's basically it. Yeah.
But yeah, Wind Waker and Twilight Princess are all those 4 HD versions: Wind Waker, Twilight Princess, Skyward Sword, and what's the fourth one? I don't remember. 2 of them are stuck on Switch. Wii U.
Yeah.
Okay, all I wanted was Xenoblade X. I got it. I'm happy. I'm happy, man.
Yep. I never have to touch my Wii U ever again. That's a great feeling. That's a great feeling. I love Wii U games. Don't get me wrong. That game and the PS3, every time I try and go back to play them, it's like, why does it feel like I'm playing on a video game system where the actual OS is running on dial-up?
Yeah.
I just realized probably a bunch of people that are listening to this podcast have never experienced dial-up internet.
Oh no! Don't say that. No, people.
We got our Spotify
please comment. You need to
we got our statistics. We know how old our audience is on average. They know dial-up. They got it. They're veterans.
Mm-hmm.
The last piece of news here before we go into sales and like a big date rundown. This one on its face is like not that earth-shattering, but there's a lot to pull out of this one, and I'll let Adam take the front on this one. Obviously, one of the other games that we're excited that it's finally planning to release long after it was announced is the remaster for Suikoden 1 and 2 HD, Rune and Dunen Unification Wars. So it was releasing on March 6th. We're ramping into like the marketing cycle for that. This official Suikoden Twitter account released a short little 90-second clip for the game. And Adam, you basically kind of covered this, specifically looking at the localization for the new remaster.
Yeah, so I saw this tweet from Konami from the Suikoden account, and there hasn't been a lot of marketing on this game. They like released, the release date trailer. That was several months ago now. And then they released like the opening movies. And then like on the Twitter accounts, they're kind of doing the obvious thing, and they're just kind of like counting down to release with each of the 108 stars, which are like the characters in the game. Like they're just doing a new intro each day or whatever. But then like they showed this little gameplay clip, and I was like, well, it's just a 90-second clip. I don't know if this is really, it's not really a trailer, it's just a quick clip. And I was just like, you know what though? I want to see how the localization is, because for those who have played Suikoden, that is a game that is pretty well beloved, the second game especially, despite kind of a messy localization. And I don't want to be too critical of the original localization. Like Konami didn't really have like a big RPG before this in this era. There was the original Suikoden was there, but you know, just back then the resources, the time, the effort, the you know, everything wasn't set up for localization as they are today. But this is an opportunity to improve it. So I kind of wanted to compare. So I transcribed the original and the new localizations in our news post here. And if you read through it, some of the lines are the same, but some of them are a little bit different. Like, for example, one of the characters in this little scene here is named Kasumi, and she refers to herself in the original version as Vice Chancellor. In the new version, she's Vice Chief, which I think makes more sense because it's a village.
Okay. Yeah.
And there's a few other things in terms of like the original version. I hope you love ellipses, because the original localization of Suikoden has a lot of ellipses, and I don't mean just little 3 dots. I mean like 12 dots. And how I think it had to do with like fitting the text boxes quite right or whatever, and like those are gone. And some of the wording is just a little bit different. Me personally, when I'm comparing these dialogues, it's obviously like the same dialogue, just tweaked. It's not like rewritten from scratch. But I think this is just one clip of many. I think it's an improvement. And I'll just some people on Twitter, which there's a lot to say here, but some people on Twitter see that, oh, Konami's updating the localization. How dare they? Because they just see that and they assume the worst. And it's like, no, this is a game that needed it. This is a game that needed it. We'll see how it turns out. But
If any, there's definitely one of the more like examples, like when you hear like, hey, they're gonna update the localization, it's like awesome, you know, because like it's one of those things that like a lot of localization decisions made back in the day is because of that hardware and the limitations you had with the character dialogue boxes and the amount of characters that can be displayed on screen, like the and how we utilize language between like the Roman alphabet and our letters versus like Japanese kana. You know, very very different, and how the hardware renders that and what it can support. You know, it's all very complicated, and trying to like get like translating back in the day to get the spirit of like the original dialogue was like tremendously hard with that. While in these days you don't have those limitations really anymore with the hardware side of things. Which, you know, can, if you have more freedom to at least, you know, express what they're doing, it's gonna probably lead to a more accurate, you know, localization of it, naturally. So yeah, I mean, I didn't know that like they actually displayed like English dialogue. So thank you for the comparison between this remaster and the original. Like I didn't know they actually showed off like English dialogue.
Well, it was basically a dialogue scene that they showed. It was like one of the recruitments. So I just decided to transcribe it. So
it's good. That's very smart.
Yeah. But otherwise, I'm really excited for these games. I played Suikoden when it came out on like the PSN on PS3, so I wasn't there.
Yeah.
I can't call myself an original fan. I wasn't there on the PlayStation 1 era, but I showed up in the early 2010s or whenever it was on PS3. So I'm excited to check these out, and the redone localization is honestly probably one of the biggest things I'm interested in and excited about and curious about, because that's kind of the one thing that holds the game back, in my opinion. And also, the original game had some actual censorship, like real censorship. So I wonder if they'll do what they'll do here, if they can adjust that. I'm assuming they will. So.
And that covers it for like announcements, news, and big trailers and updates, like we have with this weekend in there. We do have 2 sales updates, both kind of Square Enix related over the December-January timeframe. They announced that the Octopath Traveler series as a whole has hit 5 million units sold. It's been a while since we've last heard of it, but before the sequel was announced back in like late 2022, Octopath Traveler was at 3 million. So clearly we're at least 2 million for the second game. I'm not sure if this includes... I think you're going where I think you're going, but go ahead.
Not necessarily, because we did get confirmation like a year ago or so, like basically about a year after Octopath 2's launch, that had reached 2 million sales. So I think possibly it could be closer to like a 3.5, 1.5 million split or something like that. But still, that is good sales overall. I hope it's enough for Square Enix to do a third game, because like I think I said this, that like Octopath 2 was my favorite game that released in 2023. I really, really loved it. So
Yeah. And then I'll just loop in the other one here. Nier Automata is at another milestone, 9 million. So if that can hit 10 million, I think that would be I don't know, we assigning 10 more.
That puts it in the Final Fantasy 15 territory.
Yeah, it kind of does, honestly. So yeah, it's at 9 million shipments and downloads. And it looks like it just has legs. Like in February, a year ago, it was at 8 million. So it sold 1 million copies ish in 2024. So that's obviously the Switch port is more recent, kind of
also
giving it longer legs.
the anime.
The update to the PC port, and yeah, the anime too.
Yeah. You ever think about the fact that probably the reason why we got like 50 bajillion like smaller like budget releases from Square Enix in late 2022 is because they saw how Nier Automata did and thought, "Ooh, what if one of those does similar numbers?"
Yeah, they tried to. Yeah.
I've been arguing this for a long time. That was their philosophy for half a decade after Automata, was to try to do a bunch of small releases and hope one of them caught fire.
Like
the problem is though is that Nier Automata was given room to breathe. Those other titles were not. Like, I genuinely believe that if they had pushed a bunch of those titles like 6 months later, a lot of them would have done a lot better. Like, I believe that if Harvestella was on every platform and was given like at least like a month and a half, 2 months to breathe, not next to a bajillion other Square Enix releases, it already did decently enough. I think it would have actually blown up a bit. It's such a shame. It's like they had all these games, which some of them I still want to get around to, like the DioField Chronicles. Like, everything I've heard from you and other people that played it, it's like that genuinely might be something up my alley, at least for no other reason than how bold it is with its story. So
DioField's so sick.
It's just such a shame. It's just such a shame.
The ending is excellent.
me and you just like were just like, man, this is one hell of a game.
I still have to get to Harvestella and Tactics Ogre.
Oh, I forgot to do.
Harvestella is one of those games I know I'm gonna like. If no, for no other reason, I've listened to that game's soundtrack. A really fantastic soundtrack can elevate any game to at least being like a 7 or 8 out of 10. And from what I played, it's already at least a 7 or 8 out of 10. But I've also seen the how long to beat time for Harvestella, and I've heard Bryan say how long Harvestella is, and it's like, that is a great game. I'm sure I would love to get to it. Why is it that long?
Harvestella is it's a sort of game where whenever I hear someone say this to me, I almost get a little on edge, and I'm going to say it again, so I'm a hypocrite. But the less you know, the better, because it completely changed. It, like, goes against what my preconceptions were, and not in terms of like a there's a giant twist, and the less you know, the more effective it is. It's just like, wait, I didn't expect this to be in this game. I didn't expect this game to go to this place. The game has like I'm sorry, I guess mini tangent Harvestella re-review. It has like a much more somber and poignant like mood that a lot of games don't dare to touch. Like they don't go there, and it's one thing I didn't expect from that game. But yeah, it was also like 80 hours long.
In conclusion, Paranormal Sight should have been the next Nier Automata.
I mean,
also an excellent game.
Yeah, I feel like that has a decent shot. That did well, was well received. You could tell from the way that Square Enix treated it. It's like, oh, we didn't expect this to do as well as it did. We should probably at least talk about it a little.
They're making a Japanese exclusive manga like side story for it. Where's our Western release for that?
Yeah,
come on,
yeah.
Come on.
Look, we just got to be happy that at least it was a success. Paranormal Sight bros, we live. It's
man.
Yeah.
I really hope to see a follow up. I really want it so bad.
Yeah.
And with that, to kind of wrap up this podcast, we have just a pretty long list of upcoming relevant dates of all sorts. This is another one. I guess we could have talked about this in the Game Awards section 2.5 hours ago. But Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, we all expected this, but it is coming to PC. The date is January 23rd. It will be releasing on Steam and Epic at the same time. And Square has, after the announcement, like just this month in January, gone through and talked about like unique aspects for the PC release. Like it will support the DualSense controller on PC, just like PS5, up to 120 FPS, improved lighting, DLSS support, and things like that.
So the interesting thing about this PC release is they released a new trailer not too long ago, showing off like improvements to this game that aren't in the PS5 Pro version. Like for example, they're advertising that has like new improved lighting, and it's pretty substantial, like substantially different lighting from the original game in terms of like how they're placing the lighting in some of the cutscenes and stuff like that. And that's not a PS5 Pro improvement either. There's like exclusive to the PC version.
Also,
version
it's
of the game?
interesting how they have a really fascinating, like, I guess, CPU optimization thing where you can, like, tweak how many NPCs
Yeah.
are around, which that's actually really cool. And considering they said we're trying to get it working on Steam Deck, it's like that seems like something they specifically did to make it playable on a Steam Deck, and that is really cool.
Yeah, that's a really fascinating option for that. For people who are interested in this game, like right now, there's like a special promo that they did also on console for like if you don't have like the remake already, they're selling both like remake and rebirth as a twin pack for $70. So you can have both of these games for the price of like one game, pretty much, for remake and rebirth.
Yeah,
on
I'm not
PC.
going. Yeah, I'm not going to replay this on PC just because it's like a fucking 90+ hour RPG. If you
Yeah.
actually want to do like side content, what you do.
I-
But I'm glad that at least from what we're seeing, they put any effort into the PC port.
We'll see,
'Cause-
because like the this game is still, I think, on Unreal 4 as an open world game, and I know
Yeah.
remake had issues with PC stuttering.
I know, but what I'm saying is that there was literally only 2 graphics options
Yeah.
in remake. It was like shadows and light and texture.
Right, it was a pretty
that was it.
lackluster. Yeah,
That was
PC
it.
port.
So the fact that there's DLSS, there's different, like a bunch of different lighting options, there's like different texture options.
Mhm.
The fact that they have the NPC thing tells me they put any effort into this PC port, which at least is a good sign, a better sign, anyways.
Yeah. So we'll see how this game is running when it releases, and hopefully it doesn't suffer the stuttering issues that the remake PC version had. You definitely don't want it for this game for sure.
Yeah.
But excellent game. I would like to check out the PC version before the third game comes out, but I'm still good on like my like 96-hour playthrough.
I do not
Like
have
91 or
time.
96.
I do not have time to replay through this again while I'm also spending 16+ hours a week in a Final Fantasy XIV raid, while also fucking Monster Hunter's coming out in a month and a half, dude. No.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, like I said, I won't be revisiting like Rebirth anytime soon, but maybe if there's like somehow spare time before, because I actually like did a very quick like remake playthrough, but I don't think I can do a quick Rebirth playthrough.
Yeah. And for context for folks, Monster Hunter is coming out in a month and a half. I have to assume that we're probably getting code around a month to 3 weeks ahead of time. So yeah.
I hope this doesn't sound too self-important, but all of your game media friends are probably going to be playing Monster Hunter all throughout February.
Yeah. Like for Iceborne, they gave us a full month. For Sunbreak, they gave us what, 2.5, 3 weeks, something like that. So it's like, yeah.
We also have 2 other games releasing on January 23rd, smaller titles, but we'll shout them out here. The newest entry in the Mercenaries strategy RPG series, Mercenaries Lament Requiem of the Silver Wolf, will launch on Steam on January 23rd.
Pop quiz, which number is this?
7.
It's 7.
Oh wow, I just guessed.
It is
All
7.
right, yeah.
Yeah, it's pretty good.
I was actually thinking like 7's way too high a number. It's not actually 7. No, it is 7.
Nope, it is. This is the 7th Mercenaries game.
All right, so yeah, it released on consoles in 2023. So this is just a PC release on Steam.
I like how you
And
said
then,
it's the seventh Mercenaries game because I was thinking it's like, oh yeah, obviously the first one was like the Mercenaries open world game, the Mercenaries 2 open world like destruction game. You
Oh, yeah, I
know,
remember the
Yeah.
LucasArts one.
The
Yeah.
Mercenaries.
from Pandemic or whatever it is.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's like when talking about Monolith versus Monolith Soft. Sword of the Necromancer Resurrection will
Really quick,
also be
sorry.
releasing
Really
on.
quick, sorry. I just imagine people listening to this are really confused with this Mercenaries tangent. Like, this is a tactical RPG series from a Japanese indie company, but there's also a Western old open world like destruction like terrorist type game that has the same name.
We sunk so many hours into that, like in early
That
high
original
school.
one? The original one's pretty fun.
Yeah, it's basically just you for some reason have access to like airdrops and not nukes, but like you can bomb the shit out of everything. It's
It's
got
just
like
like an overworld sandbox of like just causing havoc and mayhem and destruction.
it's kind of like Just Cause in that way.
Yeah.
So
It's fun though.
It's very fun.
okay, Sword of the Necromancer Resurrection will launch on January 23rd for all consoles, including Xbox One and Xbox Series.
This is
And
a 3D remake, I
Yeah.
believe, right? Of the original Sword of the Necromancer. So it's interesting. It's like 3D remakes are a thing. Romantic Saga 2 and now Sword of the
I love that we have like over the last like couple of years we've reached a point where indie developers are making PS1, PS2 style like games. I really am a big fan of that. God, I need to get to Crow Country. There's so many games from last year. It is so funny that we actually got some people giving us shit because we said that last year was a good year for games, and it's like I don't know what to tell you, dude. Play indie games.
There's that game that has like the Parasite Eve-esque aesthetic.
Fear the Spotlight.
That's the Valhalla people, right?
Yeah, the Valhalla developers making their own Parasite Eve-esque. I forgot what it's called.
The Valhalla developer. Yeah, that's right. Oh yeah, that did look
It's like
good.
Parabellum Bullet or whatever.
Yeah, Parabellum Bullet. It had a really
Sukaban
interesting art
games.
style.
I'm like, oh, is that?
Yeah.
You couldn't think Sukaban games. Okay.
Yes.
Yeah.
That looks cool.
Anyway, Sword of the Necromancer. It was like a pixel art RPG that came out like a while ago, more like an actiony type game. They did a Kickstarter for the second one, and then like one of the Kickstarter goals was to remake the first one. So that's what this is.
Yeah, they decided to prioritize like this first, and then work on the sequel after.
Honestly, it makes a lot of sense because it's like, well, we can like more people will be interested in the sequel if there's a more modern version of the original to play. So
that covers us for January. For February, only one note here, and that is related to the conversation we just had. Monster Hunter Wilds will have an open beta test in February. It will run from February 6th to February 9th, as well as the 13th to the 16th. So 2 different beta tests in the first half of the month.
Just a heads up. This is very important. It's like one line in the news piece, but I've seen some people already assuming things about this open beta test that are not quite true. None of the performance and gameplay improvements that the dev team like talked about recently are going to be part of this open beta test. It's going to be basically the same performance and like gameplay feel as the original beta test like a month and a half ago.
So to put it in the verbatim, here's what they said, the YouTube description of this open beta test announcement. In the YouTube description, it says, please note that adjustments including performance, weapon changes, hit stop, quality of life improvements, and more will not be presented or reflected in the second open beta test build. This is such a weird decision, man. I don't know if I really like this of them doing a second open beta test, and then then it having not it being reflective of like the game that people will have in their hands on day one, supposedly, because now you're just having to trust Capcom's word.
And we know that there's a new build because most recently IGN had an IGN first like preview of Monster Hunter Wilds, which implies that there's going to be more coming in the upcoming weeks because usually final previews are a thing. So it's like, why? The one complaint people have had is the 2 complaints are the performance and some of the gameplay stuff with like hit stun or hit stop. And it's like you would think that you would want to why even release this so close to launch if it's not going to have those taken into account?
Yeah.
On one hand, I get it because it's probably just a very slightly tweaked build of what was like cut aside for the open beta test, and I get that. But you're probably going to turn more people away from the game than you're going to sell on it,
That's what I'm saying. Yeah.
especially when I've seen a lot of people assuming, oh, we're finally going to get to see how it runs after all the performance improvements. And it's like, you're playing yourselves, Capcom.
Yeah. It's really dumb that they didn't like surface that more in the announcement video. Like you would assume at least like, hey, let people know up front, be very transparent that this won't be reflective of having it be like a fucking one line in the YouTube description. That's not even like it's not even in the section of the YouTube description that's like even visible. And people click into the video. You have to expand the YouTube description and actually see, oh, okay, that's what it says. So it's a really bizarre decision on their front, both ways. Of like one, this having another open beta test that doesn't have these changes, and two, not surfacing this info as more as it should be. Because
Also, it doesn't fucking help that
Yeah.
when this is running, we will probably have code. At least for the second half, we will have code. And we're probably not going to be able to talk about any of the changes. Like theoretically, I could have the open beta test and the full game installed, and I'd be able to tell people what the performance differences are, but I wouldn't be able to say anything while the beta test is running because I would still be under embargo. It's like, Capcom, what are you doing?
It's really a really not good marketing decision at all. I don't know what they were thinking, man. I don't know what they were thinking. So now we just have to go off of hearsay at this point and what people say at launch when the embargo comes up. It's like, here's what you're actually going to be playing. Here's the state of the game.
And for me, and let me be completely clear here. Take anything I say about the game's performance with a massive grain of salt. I have a 9800X 3D, massive grain of salt.
Yeah, and you might have like the newer GPU at that time too. I'm not sure. So we'll see. Yeah, because specs are going to be very important for this event performance analysis. So you have to be for people out there wondering what the performance is going to be like. You have to be very, very cognizant over like when people are saying their performance, what the specs are.
Yeah. To be fair to me, when I reviewed Dragon's Dogma 2, I did also test it on my laptop, and I did mention the laptop's performance, and I plan to do the same here with Monster Hunter, but it's like, still,
and Steam Deck performance as well, but like that would be definitely the. I guess
I'm not even trying on Steam Deck. I am not. Oh no.
So I mean, like, but for people out there who wanna when they say optimization improvements for the PC version, how does that affect the Steam Deck? Like, I'm hoping people out there will do analysis over.
Yeah,
I'm sure Mikhail will be on it for sure.
Yeah. I'm sure Mikhail will, and I'm sure if it doesn't work, he'll immediately just install it on. Does he have an hour?
Something?
Yeah. My thought process is that I'm assuming that it's going to be RAM dependent, because the whole reason Dragon's Dogma 2 is completely unplayable on Steam Deck is it overloaded the RAM. So I'm pretty sure now iX or that new MSI Intel-based handheld will run it just fine, especially if you cap it at 30 FPS. So if you want to play Monster Hunter Wilds in a portable form factor and you see a good deal for now iX, that will definitely run it at least at 30 FPS. So if nothing else, that's one thing you can do. But if you're worried about Steam Deck, I would wait for performance impressions.
Yeah. So we'll see. The verdict is still out on this one because of the performance. Hoping for the best for Capcom. I would like Wilds to be awesome, but so far they haven't had a great showing for it, public showing.
Now, one piece of news, a game that was slated for February but has been pushed back a month, is Assassin's Creed Shadows. It was originally slated to release when? It's just not actually stated in our news.
It's like February.
And now it is now slated to be released on March 20th. So it's being pushed back about a month.
Yeah. So, and this is kind of they really, 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 really are banking on this to like be as polished as possible at launch because they really are banking that this game sells a lot. Um,
Mhm.
like it's one of those. It's a situation that a big game company never wants to probably find themselves in. But this is kind of a big make it or break it game for that company.
The
Like if it,
one thing I'm worried about, well, two things I'm worried about. The first thing I'm worried about is I do not think the type of success this game needs to be is the type of success this game can have. I do not think, maybe that's being a bit too cynical, maybe that's being a bit too pessimistic. I hope it's a massive success, but I do not see a world where the level of success this needs to be is even possible.
yeah, I don't know exactly. Like I don't know what this game needs number.
Because
What number this game needs to hit for it to actually like turn their situation around.
here's to put in perspective, and this was the number that I saw that made me realize just how dire things are for Ubisoft right now. Last year, which Star Wars game do you think sold more copies in the UK? Star Wars Outlaws or Star Wars Jedi Survivor? Jedi Survivor came out in 2023. Remember that? It was
Yeah,
Jedi Survivor.
Yeah.
I was gonna guess a Star Wars mobile game because that's the real answer.
Yeah. But the
Um,
fact that a year old, like well received, very well received, like Star Wars game outsold the new one, it's like that can't be good for
yeah, I then just compile on top of like other
yeah.
titanic losses on
Yeah.
Ubisoft and
Yeah.
Skull and Bones, for
And
example.
yeah. And the other thing that I wanted to mention that I saw someone else bring up that is relevant. Usually when you see a game delayed for a month to 6 weeks after an originally announced release date, within like a month and a half of when it was supposed to come out, that game failed certification on consoles. Like 9 times out of 10, that's what
Really?
happened.
Oh,
Yeah. So the fact that this was delayed just about a month from its original release, that doesn't happen unless usually they failed certification, which doesn't bode well for the state of the game technically right now.
yeah, that is the case. Then, oh god,
I hope I'm wrong. I hope
yeah,
I'm wrong.
yeah.
Like I said, I really hope this does well. I hope this can be a massive success. I just don't see the world where it's enough of a success, and I hope I'm wrong. I hope I'm
Yeah,
wrong.
I just hope it's an awesome game, and what can you say? I just hope that like it's a great game, and that's all I can really hope for. It's like it's enjoyable, it's fun to play, and that's all I can really hope for. Whether it is a success or not, it's you know, that's for everyone to find out if they wanna play that game. Ay ay ay, ay ay ay. But I already said earlier, this is coming out on the same day now as Xenoblade X and that new Atelier game. I know what I'm playing
Yep.
around that time frame. It's not going to be this game.
Yep. And unfortunately, and one of the things that even Ubisoft themselves said when they first delayed this game is they realized that every single person that has any passing interest in Ubisoft games is very, very aware that if you wait just like a month and a half to 2 months, their games are going to be half off. So,
Oh yeah,
if,
yeah,
yeah,
I can believe that. Yeah, they do go on discount pretty fast.
And speaking of games that keep releasing on the same day or within a few days of each other, going into March, in late March, we have release dates for the first Berserker Kazan coming out on March 27th. It does have, I think it showed a new cinematic trailer at the Game Awards. It was like the ghost rage spirit merging thing. I don't know how to
I think
describe it.
I forgot if like the Russo brothers directed that trailer or not. They made a big deal out of it. Saying like,
Supposedly they did. Yeah, they
yeah,
like introduced the trailer. I'm like, what is this? This is kind of
yes.
strange, but okay. And then that game will have a demo available on the 16th, and they've already said that the demo is not limited time. It's just going to stay and exist, and it will transfer over to the main game. Any of your progress. Also on March 27th, we'll have AI Limit, which is kind of a long incubating, inspired by Nier Automata from originally shown China Hero Project back in like 2019, 2018, like
Yeah,
5
it's
or
really
so
about
years back. And
quite a while.
it resurfaced early last year, I believe, with like the new newish kind of refined art style. And it will also it has a demo available now actually. I don't know about if it transfers any data or anything, but it has a demo available now, and the game will release on the same day, March 27th.
Yeah. So for the AI limit, it is a new version of the demo because they originally had like a demo before, but they got a lot of feedback on it, so they released a newer version of the demo that they recently released to accompany some of the improvements they got feedback on early versions of the demo. Um, so it actually made like a pretty big splash on one of the recent Steam Next Fest. Like people really liked it. That it was it was a pretty challenging game. I think that's one of the big complaints of that demo is like they found like some people found it like too difficult, but they really like the gameplay systems that drive the game really separated out other Souls like games. So this could be like depending on how they angle it, how well people are taking to it. This might be like maybe a secret hit when it comes out in that audience. So that best of luck to them because I really enjoyed the demo that I played of this game. That was pretty interesting. So that's AI limited, you said, on March 27th. But I'm really interested in getting my hands on this demo for the first Berserker Kazan on January 16th.
Yeah, when I played it at TGS, it was already in a very polished state. It ran
Yeah.
well, it looked great, and I was like, yeah, this feels good. I need to see how later level design is because it was like the first level and it was fairly
Yeah.
linear, that sort of
I
thing.
imagine this demo is probably gonna be like that earlier, like those early demos they already showcased, but they just want us to get people's hands on
Yep.
making a case for themselves. Which is I always support. Hey, release demos for your game before they
Adam,
come out.
will you continue your bit of playing every Souls like before playing an actual Dark Souls?
Hey, I didn't play Black Myth or Anotria, so I need to
So
get to those
basically, you've
first.
got a while before you get to Dark Souls.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Did you play? Did you play Lords of the Fallen?
No, I
The recent
didn't.
one. Okay, so there you go.
You should, especially now that it's gone a couple of patches to fix up the issues that Junior and I both had. It was yeah, I liked it at launch. The main issue I had was some of the later zones. It's like this is very clearly the enemy density was designed for co-op, and they adjusted that because of complaints when they realized, you know what, that's a fair complaint.
It's cool that they supported it. It's like but it's also like you wish that like it launched in this state when it first came out.
This is a can of worms to open up this late in the podcast. But did you see what the marketing manager of CI Games said yesterday?
I did, and I am actually kind of upset with how a bunch of people's reactions to that was to shit on the developers of Lords of the Fallen
I didn't read the
2023.
full story, so inform me because I didn't. I saw a headline but decided to ignore it.
So, like
And did not
a
think about it.
marketing manager type publishing person at CI Games basically said to investors, "We do not put DEI in our games. We are focused on the user experience." And basically said, I actually read the quote, like, games that focused on DEI have shown that they underperform and they don't sell. He literally said that, and we don't focus on that. So.
That sucks for the development team. That really
that's
sucks for the development team.
Well, that's just because you define DEI by whatever fits your narrative for any game that underperforms.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
that's a true
Yeah.
statement only in that sense.
Yeah, I was gonna ask like, what do people mean by that?
Yeah. Whatever
Great
the
question.
latest buzzword is, to be completely clear, the dude that made that statement, obviously a piece of shit. Just I've been seeing some people looking at that statement the same day as Jason Schreier put out an article saying that the real issue with video game development right now is poor management and basically shitting on the entire development team saying, oh, you're saying that when you're putting out 5 out of 10 slop. And it's like, that is, come on. It's one dude and the developers themselves, you have no idea what they think, how they feel. They're not directly attached to this guy's statement. It's like,
Yeah.
I've been seeing a lot of people I had a lot of respect for say stuff like that on Blue Sky. And it's like, guys, you see how this looks, right? Yeah.
Man, it feels like it's just gonna be once again another issue that's just gonna be. It's gonna go up more than down, unfortunately, as time moves forward. It's like
I mean, like CI Games is based in Poland, and like I'm gonna guess that this guy is based in Poland. I don't know for sure, but then like for example, the developer Hexworks is
It's
where?
not. Yeah, it's
Like I don't want to
they're in
throw
like
someone under the
Spain. They're in
bus.
Spain, I think. I'm
Yeah,
pretty
like
sure. Like
for
yeah.
someone in the office a couple countries away said,
And it's
Yeah.
like using that guy's statement from the publisher to shit on the works of a different developer that was in a different country that you have no idea what their political values are. And even if you did, you don't know every single person at that. Like, I've really been upset.
I kind of. I guess I shouldn't ask this here, but like, was that like almost like a bad spirit reporting angle? Because I didn't read the article myself. I was like, I don't.
No, the article itself didn't. Like the first line of the article is Lords of the Fallen publisher CI Games confirmed that's the thing. And let's see, did they mention that Hexworks was? They do not mention Hexworks in the.
But how did the headline posture?
So the original article is PC Gamer, and the original headline is Lords of the Fallen Studio embraces fear of DEI boogeyman, which that's already wrong. That's already wrong. It wasn't the Lords of the Fallen Studio.
Yeah, so I saw the Eurogamer thing. That's the one that popped up on my feed. I did not see the original PC Gamer article. I'm just going to say, based off that headline alone, and the first sentence saying Lords of the Fallen Studio CI Games, that is a bad article. Genuinely.
Yeah, that sounds like pretty. Yeah, that seems like a fucking article made for a lot of clicks. That's what it sounds like.
Yeah.
Oh man. So there you go. That's how it gets the clicks. SEO baby.
And the last headline we have is that Chained Echoes, the indie game from December 2022, I believe, is getting a DLC this year called Ashes of Elrant. It'll have a new playable character and a new playable area, like a mini expansion. So no other details.
That's interesting that it's getting like a big expansion so long after launch. Like I know it was successful, but that's like, interesting.
It's called like that and Sea of Stars, like both like kind of became darlings that both got like expansions in their own way.
Just to clarify, the person who made that CI Games comment was Ryan Hill. He's not in Poland, but he's in the UK. But still, that's not the studio that made the game.
Yeah.
So that point still stands.
Oh God, that whole additional article, the way they angle it, then sucks.
And if you've made it to the end, thank you so much for listening to our first regular recording for 2025 for the Tetracast. So just as we have for the past several years, we're planning to hold this podcast weekly, talking about the games of the week, reviews, obviously new announcements, go throughout the different like phases of the year, starting out with like Game Developers Conference and PAX East, going into the Summer Games Fest, going into the back half of the year, which always gets very crowded very fast, and we're going to cover, the RPGs, the visual novels. We'll have our usual tangents into fighting games and other genres as we do. If you support the site, thank you so much for listening. Thank you so much for reading our articles. We did a lot of the thank yous with the game of the year, so I'm not going to get too much into that. But if you made it to the end of this how long is this podcast? 3+ hour podcast.
3.5 hours.
We appreciate you. So obviously, we're going to be back on our weekly cadence, so we'll be able to dive into the cadence. Into the news at kind of our regular level of depth from this point forward. Like we said, January starts out pretty quick. We'll be talking about Tales of Graces. We'll be talking about the Ender Lilies follow-up soon.
Ender Magnolia is coming out in a week and a half. I need to play that.
Yeah. And then we'll go into February, which of course is its own deluge. We have the 2 reviews of Freedom Wars and of Memoire up on the site, rpgsite.net. You can follow RPG Site on all the social media platforms, Twitter, Blue Sky, Facebook. You can find us on all of those. Follow us wherever you'd like, and join our Discord, discord.gg/RPG Site. If you like our news or our podcast, leave comments on our posts on our YouTube uploads. We like to see those, or give us a rating on iTunes or Spotify. We appreciate seeing all of that. Until you hear from us next time, stay safe and take care, and we'll see you all next week.
So 2 is 4, 3 is 9, 1 is 6. That's what I.
Mercenaries is 7.
Oh.
There you go.